We'll call the meeting to order. If you'd please stand with me and join me in the invocation. Please bow your heads. Our Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for this opportunity to come and serve you in our capacity as commissioners. Lord, I pray for wisdom and guidance here to be bestowed upon each one that's up here with me here tonight, God, that you just speak into our hearts. Lord, help us to do the right things. And God, that we always keep the people in mind. Lord, as we journey through this, Father, I ask that you just bless our people here in this county as we go through these tough times in our country. And I ask that you do all this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
It's not quite 5
First
o'clock.
order of business is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move the Mr. Ben Withers' conversation up to the third place on the agenda, please.
Third place as in, it'll have to be at the public hearing.
That'll be good.
And you're suggesting before awards and presentations?
However it can go. There's just a lot of people here that are involved in that, and they'd like to go home.
Okay. Is that all right with everybody? Put it there? Before awards and presentations? All right, that's what we'll do. Ms. Arts, any changes?
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to add a couple of announcements, brief announcements under awards and presentations, and I also wanted to add an agenda item, if possible, a workshop, a proposal for a workshop, if I could add that under commissioner items.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I have a awards and presentations item, and we're also going to ask Donnie Sparkman, property appraiser. He's the chairman of the audit committee, and he wants to speak to us about that, and he'll do that under awards and presentation. Anything else? Any other changes?
I'm pulling up the agenda right now. There's an agenda item I want to pull off the general, I think under administration, regarding number item 25. I want to pull that item.
I mean, it's going to be heard. You mean do it earlier?
Or no, just or table the item until the next meeting. Request board consideration and approval of solid waste revenue enhancements. Been talking with ESG, and we think we should we want to delay it for another meeting. So
I agree.
Okay.
Ms. Arts, was your item, you wanted a regular vote on it, as if it was an agenda item and not requiring the unanimous vote?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to just table 25.
yeah.
Okay? Any other changes? Modifications? Additions or deletions? Hearing none, I hear a motion to approve as noted.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
So the second.
Motion made, seconded. All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move into the public hearings. First one is request board approval to conduct the public hearing on the advisability of the county providing solid waste collection services within the county and adopt a resolution electing to authorize the same. And Cleve, you taking the lead on this?
Yeah, I can take it if that's okay.
We'll make Cleve stand up here anyway.
This is a resolution that would be presented to you after you have a public hearing. Whether you decide to go with franchise collection of solid waste now or at any time in the future, what this does is put the haulers on notice and satisfies a statutory requirement. It does not obligate you to take collections either in-house with county staff or to even issue a franchise, but it does preserve your option to do so.
Okay. I hear a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I still very much do not support mandatory pickup, but I will make the motion to hold this public hearing just in case.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to hold the public hearing and a second. Any more discussion?
Well, it's to hold and adopt the resolution electing to authorize.
Okay. Any more discussion? I'm sorry, Ms. Arts.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the public understands we are not making a decision at this point whether to impose the solid waste assessment or go with a franchise for curbside pickup. This is not a decision to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2 is request board approval to conduct a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance amending the comprehensive golf cart community ordinance. It's too late now. Okay, but we'll move back. Ms. Carr, did you have something, some remarks about this item we just voted on? Okay.
Oh, where there's,
I'm allowing you to speak, Ms. Carr. Go ahead.
Madeline Carr, Crawfordville. I just have one question. How many jobs do you think might be created by going with a franchise? Did you know that answer to that question?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Seems to me, that might be something that we might want to consider as we go forward here.
Okay.
Do we have any idea when that item will come to the board? Will that be at our next meeting? Yes, okay.
Judith Harris.
Thanks for letting me speak. As someone who lives in a very remote, perhaps, part of the county, and I can think of at least 6 people in my immediate neighborhood, which means I can walk to their houses in 10 or 15 minutes, who have long driveways, and they're single people. And I'm 70 and I'm one of the youngest. So, those are considerations with curbside pickup. We don't have any curbs out there, but that's a concern of mine. I understand that there's an immediate need to deal with the situation at the landfill, and that's really a separate issue from the possibility of having curbside pickup. So I'm wondering when we'll get more information about that, or have I just missed it? Has it been in the Wakulla News and I've missed it?
Could you repeat your question, ma'am? I apologize.
I think it's going to be at the next meeting, Ms. Harris.
My question was, when is it going to be? When is the need for the landfill improvement and the cost of doing that going to be addressed? And that's a separate issue from curbside pickup.
That's also being handled at the August 1st meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Robert Hadaway.
Yes, Robert Hadaway from Crockville. It's kind of like the same thing we had this last meeting last year. It's the same thing. It's kind of like, my same question is, what happened to all the money that we were making when this county was rocking and rolling a couple years ago? And they had this problem with this landfill for the past 10 years, and everybody knew about it. Kind of like somebody's not spending their money right, and we're having to pay for it. And, everything has gone up this year. Land taxes have gone up. For what reason, I have no idea. The property tax, the values have gone up. How much more are we supposed to take? I just don't understand. It's just, you don't have any answer? Or, it's kind of like you guys just, like everything else in the government, they overspend, they do whatever they want, and then we're having to pay for it.
We do have a little over $400,000 put aside for capping the landfill that we've collected in the past. But that is only, it's going to cost, I think they anticipate about $1 million to cap the landfill. That is part of the cost that we're taking. There is money there, but we need more. So that's one of the things we'll be discussing at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No more citizens on that item.
excuse me, Mr. Chairman, since in order to make sure we've done this in the correct order, I would recommend that you re-vote on whether you want to adopt the resolution
Okay.
or not.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Brock, seconded by Mr. Merritt. All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, request board approval to conduct a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance amending the comprehensive golf cart community ordinance.
I make a motion to conduct a public hearing and adopt the proposed ordinance amending the comprehensive golf cart community ordinance.
Second.
Motion and a second. Citizen to be heard. Alan LaMarche.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I start, can I ask for clarification? Is this the public hearing? Will you make a decision tonight?
Yes.
Okay, because it's not what it's, we were just a little confused by that. Thank you very much. And the second thing I would like to ask before I get started, I noticed that Commissioner Arts had a PowerPoint up there. Are you going to present a PowerPoint?
I'd like to, as part of the discussion. And I can, I mean, depending on what the board prefers, I can do it before or after citizens.
Can we see the PowerPoint before we make a presentation, or what would you prefer, sir?
Have a seat, Mr. LaMarche, and we'll go through the commissioners, and then we'll get you back up. How about that?
Okay, and I apologize if I didn't let you know that for my contribution to the discussion, I wanted to show the results of some research that I've done. So, okay. And my concern in particular was on golf carts and children's safety. As you know, golf carts are no longer being driven exclusively on golf courses. Many resort and retirement communities and some local municipalities now allow them on streets for transportation. And as that trend's moved forward, we see a surge in golf cart related injuries. There are about 15,000 golf cart injuries presenting to emergency rooms for treatment each year. Between 1990 and 2006, the injury rate increased 132% from 5,500 to 13,500. And from 2002 to 2007, it increased from 11,000 to 17,000. And golf cart injuries are expected to continue to grow as more local governments designate public roads for use of low-speed vehicles and as the number and speed of these vehicles on the road grows. Now, people who have done studies of these injuries find that about 50% of them happen on the golf course. Those that another study looked at 70% at sports facilities, including golf courses, 15% on streets or public property, and 15% around the home. The most common injury that's sustained is soft tissue damage, which could be bruises or cuts. And that, in fact, if the injury is to the hips or legs, that's what you have. If the injuries to the shoulder and upper extremities, those are most often fractures, and if it's a head or neck injury, those are usually concussions or intracranial hemorrhage, which is bleeding inside the head. Now, Medical College of Georgia took a look at patients who were seen there for golf cart related trauma. They saw 68 patients over about a 9-year period. A little more than half were male. One of the things that catches my eye is that the median age was 13.4 years. 69% of those patients had head injuries. You can see about a third of them were skull or facial fractures, and 20% were bleeds inside the head. The average hospital stay was almost 5 days. About a third had to go to intensive care, and the average ICU stay was about 3 days. Children were involved about 60% of the time, with the average age being 9, and they were most often passengers in the golf cart 70% of the time. About 40% of golf cart accidents involve passengers ejected or falling out of a moving cart, and that can lead to serious injuries, especially of the head. Children are especially susceptible to injection because of their small size and their inability to touch their feet to the floor. About 10% of golf cart accidents involve a rollover, and rollover accidents are twice as likely to lead to a hospital stay. Now, here are 3 young women in a golf cart. The one I'm most concerned about is the young lady on the left, not because she's on a cell phone, but because making a sharp left turn very often results in passenger ejection, as you kind of see on this. Even though there's a little hip restraint or handhold on the right side, when you make the left turn, the person tends to pivot over that into a head-first dive. One study showed that golf carts traveling as slow as 11 miles per hour can easily eject a passenger during a turn. Rear-facing golf seats in particular pose a high risk for falls. And my concern again is children, because they are at especially high risk for injuries. Children less than 16 are involved in more than 5,000 accidents a year. 40% of ER visits are children, and half of those involve an ejection. And here, another study found that young males aged 10 to 19 had the highest injury rates. This shows very graphically what I'm trying to say. Along the bottom are ages starting from 0, and during some of these studies they had as young as 2 months and as old as 96. But the real high bars are the young kids. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12-year-old kids these are people who were ejected and ended up in emergency rooms. And then these are kids who were ejected and ended up in emergency rooms, not on golf courses. This would be more of your road accidents. And again, it's the kids, it's the young ones who get hurt. So, you know, I think everybody needs to appreciate that golf cart injuries may not be very common, but children are a very large proportion of the accident victims, and especially the ones who are ejected from the carts. And then there are the deaths. There aren't many, but they're tragic when they occur, and these are all newspaper headlines from a couple years period. This young girl died of a brain injury after being thrown from a golf cart. Her parents have an article about her on the internet because they're trying to educate other parents. She and a teenage friend went for a ride before heading to church. They made a left turn. She fell out, hit her head on the road, and she died a few days later from a brain injury. These are some of the studies. The top ones are computer simulation. The bottom are studied with test dummies that just kind of show the mechanics of what happens when you make a left turn, and the person just rolls out over the hip restraint. That passive hip restraint is completely ineffective. Now, here were some studies looking at what happens when the person brakes. Most people, when they're turning left, they're looking left. But if maybe you sense that the child or your passenger is falling and you quickly brake, it doesn't help, because usually the falls progress too far, and in fact then the cart stops and they just fall out ahead of the restraint. If you have somebody who actually grabs onto that handhold trying to stop their fall, whether they're an adult or a child, that is completely ineffective at stopping the fall. And again, they end up in a head-first dive. One thing that does seem to work is a central handhold. And you know, the only thing about this is you have to grab it. You have to be holding it. What's most effective is a seat belt. And actually they've analyzed the forces, and it doesn't even need to be an auto strength seat belt. It just some kind of a seat strap even that would keep you in the seat. So most of those studies have shown that if you want to prevent passenger ejection, a centrally mounted handhold is very effective. Seat belts are extremely effective, especially for children. If there aren't seat belts and you have a young child, put a helmet on them. And obtaining seat belts apparently isn't difficult. A lot of people sell aftermarket seat belts. There are many private communities and municipalities that require seat belts, and Palm Desert is one. Another thing we've talked about is whether driver's licenses should be required, and these were some quotes from some of the people who are dealing with these kind of injuries. And you know, a lot of people think golf carts are a pretty safe form of driving for teens, but this expert says they're not. They're meant to be driven by adults. And here's the director of pediatric emergency medicine who says you need to know what you're doing behind the wheel of a vehicle before you get behind the wheel of a golf cart. I've had some Shell Point residents expressing support and pointing out that they've had trouble enforcing even a 14-year-old age limit in the village. So experts recommend that kids should not ride in golf carts on golf courses unless they have a seat belt. At the very least, a centrally mounted handhold should be provided. That manufacturers need to work on these passive hip restraints because they just aren't effective at all. And on the road, they think, the experts say, everybody should be wearing seat belts. Some other recommendations I came across: parents should exercise extreme caution before allowing a child to ride in these vehicles. Some people say children under 6 should be excluded altogether, and that you need to carefully monitor any children or minors operating golf carts. The Florida Senate has a committee on transportation that has made a number of recommendations that haven't been enacted into law, but at least they're aware of what some of the problems are. And you can see one I've highlighted, seat belts was one of the recommendations they made. Here there was a recommendation for driver's licenses. And I think I'll stop there. I don't really know what the answers are. I mean, I think I'm very concerned about children. I realize there are a lot of people in Shell Point who are very happy with the ordinance that's been in place for a long time, and you've been fortunate. There haven't been any children seriously injured so far. We're talking about expanding this now to Panacea, maybe a slightly different community. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to show this is for those of you who are loving parents and grandparents. No matter what happens tonight, if this board decides to approve this ordinance without any change, then I encourage you to think about trying to do some of these things. Put seat belts in and maybe restrict the ages and so forth. I know I'm a mother. I have worked I'm in medicine and public health, and I've been a long-time member of the Children's Coalition and Wakulla County Coalition for Youth. Children need an advocate because there aren't children here, and there's nobody who's going to speak up for them. And that's why I'm speaking up. I really feel that what looks like will probably pass tonight, and that a lot of, you know, good-intentioned people want to see put in place, is putting our children at more risk than I personally think we should be putting them at. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Any other comments by the commissioners before we hear the citizens? Okay. Alan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alan LaMarche, 73 Janet Drive, Shell Point. I will not ask for equal time. Thank you, Ms. Arts, for your very informative and somewhat emotional information. I just want to assure you that we all do care and love our kids and are very concerned for their safety, okay? So have no doubt that all of us feel that way, parents, grandparents, regardless of what we may say here about this particular issue. Our kids grow up with golf carts. Golf carts have been a part of Shell Point since I've been there over 20-some years. We all have golf carts. Most of us have two. Our kids grow up riding in that golf cart with us. When they're old enough to hold the wheel, they go on our lap and they start steering. And then when they reach that age where we can sit next to them and allow them to steer, they do that until they turn 14. It's a way of life. They grow up with this, just like a kid grows up riding a horse. Another kid out down here on the beach grows up riding his boats. Go out there and oyster fishing with his daddy. Okay, our kids grow up that way with these golf carts. They're safe. We assure that they are. For 6 years we've been there with this, and way years before that, and we have never in my lifetime had an accident, an injury, a citation, an arrest, or any other problem involving our 14 and 15-year-old drivers. So that's not going to be a problem there. I can bring you doctors. We've got a bunch of doctors at Shell Point. I mean, a whole bunch of them. Some local, a lot of them in Georgia. One of them is the head also of a pediatrics facility in Georgia, and he has kids, and he has grandkids, and they all operate golf carts. He would come up here, if you're here tonight, and assure you that we do it safely. We like our golf cart community that follows the state statutes. The state of Florida says it's okay, it's good enough for us. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Kathleen Lamarche?
You took my time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Byron Price?
My name is Byron Price. I live at 146 Royster, which is in Shell Point. I, along with Alan LaMarche, we were the primary movers on urging the county to pass the original ordinance, and I guess that's been probably, 5 years ago, something like that. I tracked the state statute for safety concerns, and we basically, in our proposal to the county, which was accepted, tracked those same requirements, and they are in the ordinance, and I think that's more than adequate. I would urge the county to, if you go to one ordinance, one size fits all, to go with the original ordinance that we had in Shell Point. If you think the other locations are different and require a different approach, then fine, but I would ask that Shell Point remain as it has been in the past. It's been a de facto golf cart community for 35 years and a legal golf cart community for, I guess, 6 years, 5 years, whatever, and we've never had an incident. So I would urge you to basically, in our case, reinstate the original ordinance, and if you're going to have one ordinance, make that original ordinance the ordinance for countywide. Thank you.
Thank you. Ted Golphin?
Ted Golphin, Island, Shell Point. I go along with Byron. I've had a golf cart down there for almost 50 years. We've had no accidents. It is an end-of-the-road community, and possibly what the county needs to do is treat the end-of-the-road communities different than, say, downtown Panacea, where you have a highway going through. And I'd like to see us go back to the way it was. Thank you.
Okay. And no more citizens to be heard. Any more comments by the board? Hearing none, all for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I will vote aye with reservations.
Okay. So the motion carries 5-0. All right. Next item, 3, request board approval to conduct a public hearing and consider adoption of an ordinance regulating the use and licensing of simulated gambling devices and facilities. Heather, I'll let you take us through this.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. This ordinance, the board directed that we bring this back at one of your, I think it was your first meeting in June. This ordinance is going to prohibit any internet cafe or simulated gambling facility from operating in the county without a permit. It does not ban them, it merely requires them to come and get a permit from the county and to meet certain minimum requirements. This ordinance would outline those application requirements, the eligibility, and the fees necessary to be issued a permit. It does cap the total number of these facilities at 10. What these facilities are, there is a proliferation of them right now in the state. And in a nutshell, what it is a facility that sells either phone cards or internet time or some other consumer product. And as for each sale, depending on the dollar amount, you get a certain number of sweepstakes entries. You then take some device they give you, whether it's a card or a token or whatever, and you go to their computers that look like slot machines, and you get to unveil your sweepstakes entries to see whether you've won a cash prize. So to the consumer, they look and feel a lot like gambling. This ordinance is not saying that they are illegal gambling. We are leaving that to the law enforcement and the state attorney. What this is saying is we recognize that by your existence in the county, we're going to have additional need for law enforcement. There's an additional need for security at these facilities that have a high amount of cash. And that's what this ordinance is intended to provide. It provides for a annual fee. It is shown here on, they're broken out in your agenda item. It varies depending on the number of machines on site. These fees are sized to help recover the costs associated with both the regulation by the county, the inspection of the premises, and to defray some of the additional costs that we believe law enforcement is going to incur throughout the years as these entities exist in the county. The ordinance includes local restrictions relating to location restrictions relating to child care facilities, schools, parks, churches, senior citizen centers, and distancing requirements from other internet cafes. It includes signage requirements, both how they can advertise their facility to the public, and it requires them to post information inside so consumers can see entities and organizations that may be able to help with gambling problems. It requires these things to be posted. These businesses are prohibited under this ordinance from serving or allowing alcohol and from having minors, and limits the hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. and also prescribes certain safety and security measures, including video surveillance, a drop safe, silent alarms, and requires security personnel at certain times. Chairman and I met originally with Sheriff Harvey on this, went through these issues. He is the one who brought it to our attention that we probably needed to move in this direction, and I shared this draft with them as well.
Does this, I know we have 2 of these sweepstake cafes already in Wakulla County. Does this grandfather them in?
They would come and get a license at this point. They
like if, let's say,
would
for
be
instance,
granted the license.
But if, let's say, for instance, one's within 1,000 feet of a child care facility, would they have to move locations, or would they be grandfathered in that location because they were already there?
They would be okay. Under the 2 existing ones would still have to come in and get permitted, but they would be allowed to maintain in their existing location.
I hate to sound so naive, but if you go buy a phone card, right, which obviously you've never been in one of these places, is the phone card still good when you lose your money?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
I anticipate that at some point this is going to be addressed by the legislature. I think a bill has already been introduced for next session, because there is a big debate about whether there's a camp that thinks it's illegal gambling and a camp that believes it's similar. They try the monopoly when you go to McDonald's, buy a Big Mac and you get the monopoly piece. That's a sweepstakes. So there's a loophole in state gambling law that allows sweepstakes, and these entities fit themselves into that loophole.
Well, did someone just wake up one morning and have an epiphany, or has this been around for a long time? Because now they're popping up everywhere.
They are popping up everywhere. I don't know if there was an epiphany. They've been spreading for the past couple of years.
Yeah. Well, the people they open up one in our community, but the 2 in our community, they aren't locally owned, so the money isn't. They're hiring people to work in them, but right now they're not actually bringing much more money into our community.
Remember, I was doing some engineering work one time out. The guy was going to do this office something way out on Highway 20. Like, this guy's crazy. Nobody's going to go use the internet access. Packed next day. So I guess that's what it was.
Well, I want
Let's get a motion on the floor, and then we'll...
I was going to say one more comment before I make my motion. I've had a lot of citizens, or a few citizens, raise concerns about this, and I'm going to make the motion that we conduct the public hearing and adopt the proposed ordinance regulating the use and licensing of simulated gambling devices and facilities, and have a workshop on this in the future to discuss further. Because I don't know, I've had citizens call me who are in favor of it, citizens who call me who have been against it, trying to figure out if our rules that we're proposing need to be stricter in the future. I don't know. And I want to try and help meet those needs if necessary.
Second.
Okay. Motion to hold the public hearing and to set a date for a workshop. So that means we want to approve.
We'll approve the I want to approve, what I want to do is currently approve this current one because they need to be regulated.
I agree.
They need to be regulated now. What I'd like to come out of the workshop is try and figure out if the regulations we proposed are enough or if they need to be more in the future.
Let's do it in two motions. Let's deal with the first motion. That way we
Okay.
hear the citizens to be heard, and then we'll take up your second motion to set a workshop to discuss it.
Okay.
And further.
I'm okay with that. So the first motion is just as suggested, option
Okay.
1.
Seconded by Mr. Merritt. And citizens to be heard is John Shuff. Thank you. Chuck Robinson.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Provide a copy to Evelyn also if you have an extra. Thank you.
Chuck Robinson, 103 Wildwood Drive. Commissioners, before you tonight is a proposed ordinance on the regulation of simulated gaming devices that is far too weak to be enacted. Instead of creating an environment restricting access to Wakulla County and citizens, the ordinance will actually encourage a permissive attitude towards these so-called internet cafes that allows them to operate on the fringes of contested Florida statute. If we seek to regulate these failed houses of gambling, I suggest we pass an ordinance that not only limits their number, but makes it inhospitable for them to profit on the backs of their key demographics, the poor and the elderly. With that given, if I may, I would like to make the following changes to the proposed ordinance. A doubling of proposed application permit and inspection fees. As proposed in Section 7 location, that the minimum distance from the named facilities be increased from 1,000 feet to 2,500 feet. That also included in Section 7, location shall also include any business that serves or sells alcoholic beverages, pawn shops, short-term lending or payday establishments, and finally firearm munitions dealers. That also included in Section 7, location that no simulated gaming device facility be located 5,000 feet from another simulated gaming facility. Actually, that's what's in Leon County. That a list of all persons and their addresses who have won prizes which have value of more than $25 be publicly posted on the entrance of the simulated gaming facility or in a local newspaper without the need for or request from ownership. That at proposed in Section 10H, limitations on operations of business, no felony convictions, that also be extended to the employees of a simulated gaming facility. Finally, I'd like to propose that the total number of simulated gaming facilities permitted to operate in Wakulla County to be no more than 4. The current proposed ordinance is 10, and I believe that beckons a run on permits in the very near future. Thank you.
Those are certainly valid restrictions, I guess, that could be debated and included.
Well, I haven't even seen what they are except for what he said. I would prefer to be able to look at them and analyze them.
Okay. All right, so we'll move forward. Suggestion we move forward now and then do the workshop and take all this into account. Okay.
Heather, if Alan felt so inclined to make some of these changes, would that mean we need to re-advertise the ordinance, or are these...
Potentially, depending on which ones they are, and I haven't had a
Now,
chance
what's
to
your
look at
motion?
those.
It's
Okay.
what I'm saying. We need to pass because I think a lot of these could be contested as the situation becomes argumentative, and I don't want to do that. So we'd have the workshop, which may end up being brief, but if there's citizens, because again, I've had citizens pro and citizens against, give them the opportunity. And a lot of people aren't aware that when the sign says Internet Cafe, that it's a simulated gambling situation. And I think even having this conversation raises that awareness in our community. And if we do the workshop, that might bring out more people who have opinions.
Good idea. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to thank Chuck. No, seriously, my first reaction when this was brought to us was, why don't we ban them altogether? But I really respect a citizen who takes the time to go through the ordinance and come back with specific proposals for how to change it, and I thank you for that.
Yes. And be here for the workshop to argue your case. Okay, any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I make a motion to schedule a workshop to discuss this further in the future.
Okay. Second. I'm going to let staff figure out the date.
Okay.
All right. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, request board approval to conduct a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance amending section 2.169 of the Wakulla County Code of Ordinances as transferred pursuant to County Ordinance Number 2011-02.
I move to conduct the public hearing and adopt the proposed ordinance amending Section 2.169 of the Wakulla County Code of Ordinances as transferred pursuant to County Ordinance Number 2011-02.
Second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any citizens to be heard? Okay, who's going to just quickly explain what this is to the public?
What this does is remove the burden of proof language from your code enforcement ordinance.
Okay. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then item 5, first public hearing pursuant to the federal CDBG program in preparation to submit a small cities community development block grant application for the 2011 grant cycle.
I make a motion to conduct the first 2 public hearings per the federal and state citizen participation requirements of the CDBG grant program and approve the resolution to adopt the county's comprehensive plan as the community development plan.
Okay, motion.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Brock. Any citizens? Any discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now we will hear Mr. Withers' case. Tim, who's going to get us started here? Hold on, Mr. Withers, we're not ready for you yet. No, I just want to explain where we're at first. Y'all have a seat. We'll get to you.
Okay.
Explain to us where we're at.
Commissioners, this is regarding the bid for the Occoquan Bay Bike Trail, the first phase of the trail that we let out to bid. There was 3 bids received, actually 4 bids received. 2 vendors were qualified to bid. Mr. Withers was the apparent low bidder, but when we evaluated the proposals, we determined that he did not meet the 4 requirements from DOT to be eligible to bid. He subsequently has protested the bid. I responded appropriately. Within our purchasing policy for bid protest, I submitted a letter and a memo to you stating what the issues were and why we, after my investigation, determined that the bid was still not qualified to be evaluated or awarded. So that's kind of where we left it off. I was asking you to approve and accept the determination regarding the bid protest tonight.
Tim, can you make sure you're speaking into the mic? Sorry.
And that's kind of where we are up to date. So,
say again what you're asking us to do tonight.
Accept the determination regarding the bid protest. We determined that the bid was still not eligible to be awarded. The low bidder, a responsive bidder, is C.W. Roberts, and we're asking that you award the bid to them.
Okay. I need some kind of motion.
Need a motion to move forward?
Do something.
I'll make a motion to accept the county administrator's determination regarding OBBT bid protest by Blue Bidders and re-advertise this bid. Can I make both at once?
What, if you want to reject all bids and re-advertise, then that would be the appropriate motion.
That's my motion then.
Reject all?
I think, and let me explain myself a little bit. When I first saw this, I interpreted it, I guess the same way Ben did, as any contractor would, that subs work underneath the contractor and they're kind of lumped together. But after talking to Heather and looking some more, I think the way it's worded, some people probably did not bid on it because they thought they couldn't qualify for it. And my whole reason for wanting to rebid it is that there may be others out there who looked at this bid and said, hey, I would like to bid on that, but I don't meet all the qualifications, and they were told they don't meet the qualifications, so they didn't bid. I think the only fair thing to do is rebid it, change the language to be more in line with DOT's language, which would be either sub or subcontractor instead of just contractor. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand it.
I think that's the only fair way to do it. I think if we just make an exception for Ben, then other potential bidders or CW would have a case. If we just,
I agree.
Everybody wants to keep these jobs local. I think we all agree on that.
Only thing I'd ask is that we do it in the form of two motions. Let's resolve throwing it all out, and then on the heels of that, make another motion to change the language so that we clarify the language how we want it to read, rather than just in one motion.
Well, I think, is everybody receptive to isn't it?
Well, let's get a vote on that first. You've made a motion. I need a second.
I would second it.
Okay, we got a motion to throw out all the bids and to rebid it, and I have a second by Mr. Moore. That's the motion that's on the floor now, so the citizens that come to speak understand that.
Before, I just have a quick question. What would be the time frame if we rebid this before we have it back out and have the process starting?
I was told today it would probably be around the 1st of October before we'd get it going again.
Versus if we just move forward, we could break ground next week?
As soon as the contracts are signed.
Yeah.
We've waited a long time without a bike trail. I don't think we can wait a little bit longer to be fair.
It's not going to impact our funding. Our grant money's not going to be in jeopardy, is it?
Not that I'm aware of, but Virginia?
Okay. No, there's no timeline on that, so we're, like Randy said, it's been on.
I know it's frustrating. But
It is. But it is where we are, and we've got to fix it. So anyway, Ronald Fred Crum, that's what we're discussing now is a vote to, okay, so Ben Withers, if you don't need to speak, don't try to talk us out of it now. We're about to throw it out unless you want to tell us that you don't want us to throw it out. I mean, I'm not telling you not to speak. I'm just saying there are a lot of issues tonight to deal with. Nick, is that you, sir? Nick?
I mean, that's
Yoncliffe?
Come to them. He's going to come talk.
My name is Ben Withers. I'm a local contractor, Panacea, Florida. Mr. Chairman, that is our last resort. If you're going to throw it out and rebid it, then we'll go along with that. We strongly feel like we have a case here that we did this bid correctly, and we're willing to argue that to try to convince you. We think the attorney has accidentally made a mistake on her decision, and we would like to straighten that out. But I'll go along with whatever you want to do, Mr. Chairman. We want a chance to do the work. We know that we're qualified to do the work.
And I spoke to you earlier and told you this is probably the best scenario. Nick Yoncliffe?
I'm going to waive my time. Mr. Withers, counsel.
Thank you, sir. Rhonda Morris? Okay. Okay, go ahead. Your turn.
Is there a representative here from CW? People who I had heard there would be one. Okay. We have 5 phases of this project, and I think the opportunity will happen for many different bidders, and I'm okay rebidding the project if that's what we need to do, and seeing what results come back. Prices could go up, things could change. Right now, we're still the winning bid is at the price range that was estimated by the engineer. There's multiple phases of this project when it's done, and I want to make sure. I think the next motion Randy's going to make is a great one. This one, I'm hesitant because I want to see this project move forward sooner versus later, and there'll be lots of opportunity for lots of work as all 5 of these phases move forward.
Ms. Art?
Yeah, I want to understand fully this proposal to rebid, because you're proposing that we rebid with different criteria. Is that correct? Well, I would like more of a discussion about why the original criteria were set as they were, and what the pros and cons are of rebidding with a different set of criteria.
I don't claim to be an expert, of course, in contract administration. I'll explain to you as I understand it, and if we need to talk about this later, that's fine. We got plenty of time, I think. I talked to Alan with engineers, Preble Rish. He said it's common for DOT to allow a prime contractor to use a subs certification in order to qualify for the job. Now, that's not the way our bid was written, in my opinion.
Right.
In my opinion, again, it confused me. You can ask Virginia. I went and talked to her. It confused me at first. Once it explained it, when you take the literal reading of it, I don't know if that was the intention, but that is the way it's written right now. I'm just saying let's get in line with DOT standards, how they do it, and that's easy. However DOT does it, we'll do it. And they do it, they do allow you to do that. C.W. Roberts, for example, doesn't have a certification for applying pavement markings. They use a subcontractor, and that subcontractor then qualifies them for the job. I don't know if that explains it any better.
Well, the information from DOT is new to me, but I also remember hearing something from our attorney that there's no accountability with the subcontractor, and that we could potentially have a problem if we didn't have somebody with all 4 qualifications. So,
well, I think if we simply follow the way DOT does it, that's the best way to keep us out of trouble.
You can do it either way. What we can't do is what I don't want you to do, and that's change what you're doing
in the
midstream.
middle, right?
That's exactly right.
What you're proposing to do tonight, that's fine. We can change the criteria. You could find yourself in that position, and you'd have to draw on the prime contractor's bond. We would all hope and work that didn't happen, and that's really the reason that this bid had been designed that way, is my understanding. But this board is free to change how it wants to contract in the future, and whatever you direct, we will implement.
You know, whoever gets the bid is going to be required to post a performance bond equal to the amount of the contract. I think apparently how DOT handles it, I guess, if whoever they use to qualify them for the job defaults, they have to find somebody else, or we can call in the bond.
Right.
Now, we're still going to leave the requirement that the prime contractor still has to perform 50% of the work. So you can't just have some guy with a contractor's license sub everything out. They still have that qualification still there. DOT requires that. So I just think this is the most fair way to do it.
I agree.
And if we want to bring it back to us or you want to review the specs or maybe go over them with somebody else.
And the reason for not just going ahead and awarding this phase so we can move on and changing the criteria for the next 4.
2 issues. Number 1, it's local jobs. I know it is a little cheaper. It's not the end of the world, though. I think it's worth the sacrifice of not having the bike trail or not getting started on it for another 2 months, if it's possible that local people could get the work. And I just think it's the fair thing to do. That there may be other guys that wanted, or contractors or women or whatever, that wanted to bid on it but didn't do it because they read the specs. Who knows, there may be 2 or 3 other local people that would have bid on it if that had been clear. It was a little confusing to me, and I'm in the business contractor.
Well, I echo Commissioner Arch's same concern. One of the things that's important for us to remember while we're looking at this process, I think we all ideally want to see this go to a local contractor. That's what we want to have happen. We aren't allowed to put a local preference in this project because it's federally funded, and that's against the rules for this project. So that can't be our driving factor that we want it to go to local business. So we have to have a different justification, and confusion can be a justification. I'm just saying that can't be one of the things that we consider. Well, we can be, but we're not supposed to be considering that as we make this choice.
I can tell you, as a contractor, and a lot of people don't know that general contractor is a certain license. You have residential, you have building, and you have general contractors. They have to actually have a general contractor's license. And again, as a contractor looking at it, if I go to the building department to pull a permit to build a house, I don't need a plumber's license. I just have to have a plumbing sub. I don't have to have an electric license. I just have to have an electric sub. I have to use a licensed sub. So just intuitively to me, I would have assumed that you could use the subcontractor's qualifications, but I assume some other people make that same error.
And that's okay. I want to see this move forward, and I want to see this move forward as quickly as possible. I think the changes you're proposing for the future phases are good. I guess 2 months doesn't really matter in the long run. I just want to see this project move forward and help start having that feature done that we've had grant funded for so long. And just out of curiosity, what's the deadline for all 5 phases? Does anybody know off the top of their head? No?
I don't know off the top of my head. We can look at
There's not a deadline?
As long as we're
Moving forward.
recertified and move forward each year.
Okay.
Okay, so let's dispose of this part, and then we'll move to the next part, which is to change the language like we want it to be. So any more discussion on this item? All for the motion? Aye.
Could you
Opposed?
repeat the motion? I'm sorry, I just...
Reject all bids.
That's
Bid.
all it is?
That's all it
reject
is.
all bids?
Rebid, or, yes,
Advertise.
reject.
Okay, aye.
Okay, so it's 5-0.
That's the next one.
Oh, no, in accepting the report. We accepted the report and rejected all bids.
That's fine. I thought you said you wanted to do them separate, but that's all right.
We're going to change the language now. I
Okay.
have to give direction to her, to whoever's writing this, Heather or whoever it is. I want them to have clear guidance on what we need it to say.
I'll make a motion that would, in further projects of this sort, which are, I guess, asphalt, to be in line with DOT's bidding requirements. Is that clear enough, or?
Not really. I mean, I think what you want us to do is to allow Prime to use subs to meet the qualifications.
Right.
Because there could be other DOT.
Now, there's also, though, I notice also in our bid specs, it requires the person performing the work to be a general contractor, and I don't think DOT requires that, for example, on a repavement job. And that's not been an issue yet, but I thought we might as well clean that up while we're there.
Change the word to prime contractor?
Well, the requirement that they need to be a general contractor.
Right.
DOT excludes that for bridge construction and
Are you suggesting the word should just be contractor, or are you wanting it to be main contractor, prime contractor?
Prime, I would say.
Prime contractor. Okay.
You can wordsmith it, just give us your general intent that you want done.
Now, I think if there are projects, construction projects, for example, we would want that person to be licensed as a general contractor, but for
Road project.
DOT allows it, then I think, that's all I'm saying.
Okay. So,
Does that give you enough guidance, Heather, to...
Sure, I mean, staff will be
Mr.
doing it,
Ben
but
has a
I will
question.
look over it and make sure that...
well,
Ben, come on up here. No, come on up here.
and I'm gonna second Randy's motion for discussion because I have another amendment that may or may not be friendly. So we have this conversation.
Hey, I'm Ben Withers, a local contractor in Panacea. Can we have a little input on that language? Because I think that basically what they're saying is that if you're doing roadway work and bridgeway work, there's a qualification that you're certified by Florida DOT. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a general contractor's license to build a building or structure or building contractor or residential contractor. So if you're Florida DOT certified, when in the language when it says on the bid documents that all general contractors shall be or whatever, when you're doing roadway work and DOT work, you need to take that word general out of there and just have the DOT prime contractor shall meet this requirement. And the way I understand the DOT requirement is as long as he's doing 51% of the job, then he can subcontract the other 49% out to other DOT certified subcontractors. So I just want to make sure that that's real clear, and we help clear that up in any language barrier that
said.
Will you all allow me to work with Heather on this issue?
I'm fine with that.
And I'd be glad to help with any input on that
Staff.
language.
Now, who's going to do it? Is it going to be you, or is it going to be staff? Staff. So you're going to be working with
Whoever.
staff.
That's fine.
Randy, and you might clarify this. I met with Mr. Withers and discussed this, and one of the suggestions that he made was that we an extra level of safety that we could put in, or caution that we could put in if we're concerned about subcontractors, is requiring subcontractors over a certain number to also be bonded. So subcontractors over 100,000 have an additional bond to the general contractor. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, in my mind, if the project value is $2 million, the prime contractor.
The prime contractor. Yeah, sorry, the prime contractor.
The prime contractor would have a $2 million performance bond. I mean, I'll talk about it, but I don't know why the sub would need.
The concern that our county attorney raised is that the problem with using a subcontractor's qualifications is, like using this project as an example, if the subcontractor left, said, you know what, I don't have time for this right now, the general contractor has to go and find another person to do that, another company who is qualified, which could delay the project overwhelmingly and lead to other problems. Having an additional bond helps protect them and helps continue the project moving forward.
I think a lot of those issues are settled in the court, aren't they?
Well, it would be settled in court, but it wouldn't get your project done any quicker.
That's the problem.
I think basically if you let Randy and our attorney and Ben work out the language.
Well, I don't want to include.
I don't want to.
You don't want to include potential bidders in the project.
Oh, you don't. Okay.
If you just trust me to do it, and
Randy
I know
and
you
the
can't
attorney
give me
then.
input later, but
I'd like
you can talk to Heather and.
Well, I think the suggestion and this is a suggestion that came from a potential bidder. I'm putting it out there. It was his idea that we'd have subcontractors also bonded. So I think
I'll look into it. I don't want to make it any more complicated than it needs to be. I don't want to put it in my.
Okay, let's get a motion on the floor to do such, and then authorize you to work with staff, not with the attorney, but with staff, to formalize
I'll
the
make a
language and
motion
bring
that
it
we
back.
change our.
I think we have a motion in a second.
Yes,
Okay,
and
so you understand?
I want to amend my motion though to have me be authorized to work with staff.
And then you'll bring that language back to us for approval.
If you want to do that, that's fine.
I second the motion.
Okay, well, we already got a second, but we're okay.
You got a
that's a
second.
friendly.
You can change it. Bring it back to.
Yeah, and I'm putting it out there as you go in this conversation. You can look into it more. This idea of a subcontractor seems like a good idea. It looks like there might be a citizen. I know we don't have cards on this, so I don't know how you want to do it. But it looks like we have at least one citizen who wants to speak to the issue.
Okay, so any more discussion?
It's an issue.
All for the motion? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving right along.
Yep.
Well,
That's right.
You get to be chairman, you let whoever you want to speak.
it's only when we add additional items.
All right, now we're to the awards and presentations. The first is a presentation by Ron Pasecki, Friends of Wakulla Springs, regarding proposal to expand the family camping in Wakulla Springs.
If I could have Comcast, we're going to be showing a DVD. If you could maybe show that part so the people at home can see it. Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to come and speak. The campground issue, I think you've all read, heard, or seen the articles, TV interviews, and everything else about the recent proposals that the governor and staff have made throughout the state. Honeymoon Island down near Tampa, St. Pete, they had 1,100 people at a public meeting with a hue and a cry by the state legislatures. So the governor backed off on that one, and also said that maybe the process was going a little too fast. And what we're showing here, and I gave each of the commissioners 2 DVDs. This one here is a series of photographs that the WKPP divers made of manatees. And we don't get to see them very often below the water. So please look and enjoy the opportunity. The second DVD I gave even goes further. It's WKPP divers that actually went into the cave system and made colored movies on it. And you'll see some of these caverns are big enough to put a Walmart in. 2 public meetings were held in Wakulla County. The first was held at the Extension Office. We had about 150 people there. It was run by DEP. Followed the next day by an advisory board group that met at the Springs. There were about 16 of us that are on the advisory board. I think the general conclusions reached at both meetings was that, number one, the process was moving very fast. Number two, There were a lot of questions raised about the need for an equestrian center. Number 3, there's strong concern expressed about possible overcrowding. Now, a lot of people may not realize it, but Wakulla Springs has a capacity, and this is a capacity based not necessarily on parking, but on how many people can have an enjoyable recreational activity during the day, and that limits 2,000 people. Already in July, over the 4th, we had 2,200 people there per day. People were going back to the entrance gate asking for refunds because the beach was too crowded. The picnic tables were too crowded. The proposed campground would have 120 sites on 60 acres. It'd be a mixture of RV camping and tent camping. Again, scaling it to their maximum of eight people per site would add almost 1,100 additional people in a given day. So you take 2,200 people that went there in July and added another 1,100, because you have to assume if people are coming to Wakulla Springs for camping, during the day they're probably going to want to go over for a decent meal, to go swimming, or hiking within the park, or take a tour boat ride. So you could have 3,300 people, 3,400 people, not every day, but in peak periods. So the concerns have been raised again by our board and by the 3 hearings that this needs to be relooked at as far as the number of campsites and the capacity. We're fortunate on our board of 16 people. We have like 5 PhDs, some great scientists, and they question the possible impact on Wakulla Springs water quality. And I know the board's very concerned about water quality, and we all are. We're working to try to restore Wakulla Springs. Studies haven't been made to look at the possible environmental and water impact on this particular campground. We pretty well know what a horse does, and they're proposing up to 10 horses in a corral, and the corral was going to be right over the major conduit going into Wakulla Springs. And there's no way to capture urine coming from horses. And it would be like having a house with 80 people in it on a day, because that'd be the max that you could be dumping directly into the aquifer. So we've raised concerns about the equestrian side. I've had a discussion last week with the director of the Park Service. He assured me that at this point the project is not going forth to their ARC committee, that they do want to sit back down again with the Friends group, the county, other citizens group, and have further discussions on it. We also want to get with them to look at if they're going to have something to possibly scale it back, so we can check on the impact of overcapacity. And definitely we would like to see some of these environmental studies, and I'm sure we'd want to get Summer and the planning group involved in it to look at land use, because it's a conditional use agreement, and get all of these questions sort of answered before they go forth to any ARC, and the next ARC meeting would be in October. And in summation, Commissioner Arts has a resolution later on for the board. We've talked on it. It's a great resolution. It basically echoes what I've just said. We would like to see the county support, telling the governor and the Secretary of DEP, we're not saying no, but we're saying let's work together and further analyze this. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And enjoy the DVDs.
Thank you.
We appreciate you championing this. I know that one of our staff people went, and she reported.
Jennifer was there, right?
Was there, and she told me that she was encouraged by at least the relationship that went on there was pleasant, at least for the most part. That it sounded like people, some disagreed, but all of y'all agreed to disagree, and let's try to come back and analyze what the impact really is going to be. But and I'm personally, I'd like to see this move forward in some capacity. Maybe not have. I agree with the equestrian is probably going to be a greater impact than that can handle over there. But
well, what was also raised on the equestrian is Camping in the Springs.
Right.
It has a large equestrian facility, and it's dead.
Right
There's
there.
nothing there.
Yeah.
And we had somebody at the advisory group meeting, Jennifer was there, a woman talking from the Horse Riders Association. there is across the river, on the east side of the river, there's a trail for horses, and they've got parking spots for trailers. And the woman said, well, we can't use it because there are too many ticks there. And there's ticks in the woods, you know? And so she wanted the park to do something about the tick problem. Well, the tick problem exists on the west side of the park also, so I doubt very much whether the trails would get wide use even if there was a question there. Commissioner Moore, I think you had a question or something?
Any other comments?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ron, we appreciate that. The next one is Donnie Sparkman, our property appraiser, is going to give us a report on the audit committee and their suggestions, of which I'm a member of, along with all the constitutional officers.
I was there when we voted Donnie to be the spokesperson. He's very excited about it.
Commissioners, I'm not going to go into reading all this. It'll give you time because what we're giving you is strictly recommendations. But myself and the rest of the constitutional officers who make up the audit committee, along with the chairman of the county commission, we have spent some time discussing the audit, talking with the auditor, looking at things that we see that has been happening, and it appears that if you look at the audits for the last 3 or 4 years, they kind of mirror each other coming along, and I think we all realize it's time that we've got to do something. We can't keep doing like we have done because we're at the bottom of the hole just about now. And so it's going to take all of us working together. I think all the constitutionals have made it apparent that they are more than willing to work with the commission to work out of it. It's going to take us working together, and it's going to be tough. And I just basically wanted to pass this on to you as the chairman, let you look over just recommendations, things that we think that might help to correct some of the problems we've had in the past and to make things flow a little smoother. And I think if we will continue over the next year or years meeting, and just meeting once a year, really, I don't think it's the job done. If we find that at the end of the year that we've got a problem with the revenues coming in, it's kind of late then. So we've made some recommendations, hopefully, that will stop that, and now the ball's basically in your court to go forward and see what you decide to do with them. But I appreciate it. And like I say, we will work with you any way we can to try to make everything work.
And we thank the committee and you, Donnie, for doing this. And these are, if you look on the last page, he's referring to these 14 items as recommendations. Understand that this is going to be passed on to our staff, and then we as a board need to try to institute these as we can as we move forward. And I think they're all good decisions to try to make in the future. So
and that's not saying that you may have a better idea than what we've got there. That's just what we were able to come up with. But we have to do something.
I agree.
Are these in order of priority?
No, ma'am. There's no priority to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donnie. I know, Miss Arts, you had an item, but before we get to that, I wanted to recognize you, Miss Arts, as attaining your advanced county commission certification. I'm sincere when I say that. That's a noble thing, a task that you've taken on. I know it took a lot of your time. You spent your own money traveling there. I think you got a grant to help pay for some of your fees, but biggest lion's share you paid out of your own pocket. I wished I had time to do it. I think it's a wonderful thing to do, and I encourage all the commissioners to take advantage of that. And we want to congratulate you on your certification. So well done.
Well done.
And now you had an item.
Yes. I know a lot of people who live in Wakulla County were or are state workers, and some of those people have lost their jobs recently, and I came across an item that I thought was interesting. Apparently Tallahassee Community College took the lead on setting up a website called Big Bend Works that is designed specifically for displaced state workers. and it has information, has lots of resources, job information, human services, training, and employment, financial resources, and it's designed to help make a seamless path and transition to reemployment for state workers. So I just wanted to let people know about that. I also wanted to provide you a little bit of an update on what's happening with the wildflowers, and partly just to pitch this in terms of economic development, get people thinking toward the future. Last Tuesday, I had 31 teenagers out there pulling weeds along our wildflower stretch between 319 and Best Western was where they focused on pulling out dog fennel and ragweed and some other real tall things. And actually, if you get close, there are a zillion small wildflowers all in that stretch. And I think as time goes on, they'll keep seeding and getting denser. We also have received a $500 grant for wildflower seeds, and that may not sound like much, but a lot of people in the community have joined together. Just Fruits, the Iris Garden Club, Purple Martin, the Panacea Waterfronts community, and others are going to quadruple that in terms of purchasing seeds to put along the stretch that you see now dug up now. That's Allen's is putting in the sewer force main on the north side of 98, and that's where we're going to put all these wildflower seeds in the fall. Again, with a lot of volunteer help, and we're also going to create a sustainable landscape at the Welcome Center. And also, the Florida Wildflower Foundation got a grant to do a brochure promoting wildflower tourism in the Panhandle that includes us. And this is all gearing up for 2013, which is the 500th anniversary of Ponce de Leon's arrival and naming our state after the flowers. So, again, I want to plant this seed. If think about it. If you want to have some wildflower tourism at your business, think about putting some wildflowers out. I mean, seriously, some of our hotels along 98, some of our restaurants, start Green Guides, start thinking about putting together wildflower tours and whatever, because we're working on it. The marketing's gearing up, and hopefully, we'll be attracting a lot of people here in 2013. So jump on the bandwagon. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Brock. Any discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Planning and zoning. Number 20.
All right, your first item this evening, number 20, is an application for change of zoning, R11-01. Bob and Angela Nichols are the property owners, and they're requesting to change the existing agricultural zoning district to an RR2 district on a 2-acre property. This is just south of the intersection of Otter Creek Road and Cruise Road. We should have a map coming up here in just a minute.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to conduct the second of the two public hearings and vote to adopt the proposed ordinance amending the official zoning atlas, amending the zoning district from Ag to RR2 based upon the Planning Commission's recommendations and the findings of fact and conclusion of law made by the board and any evidence submitted at the hearing hereon, and accept staff report.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Is that what?
Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Brock.
We have this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, so I do have a couple administrative items that we need to go through first. In accordance with Section 24.01 of the County Code, each commission member needs to disclose any contact you receive from interested parties, whether they're representatives, any lobbyists, or other third parties concerning the application, and any personal investigation or knowledge being relied upon in accordance with the code.
I have no ex parte communications.
I have none.
None.
I met with staff.
None.
Okay. Additionally, anybody who is going to testify on this matter, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And staff report has already been moved into the record.
Okay. Now to get it in the right order, we need that motion made again. You just say you make that motion again.
No, you're
It's seconded by Mr. Brock.
She said it.
You're good.
Okay, so we're all right. All right, Ms. Hart.
Yeah, I guess I personally would like to hear the staff report rather than just jump to the motion. And there may be people in the public who'd like to hear it too.
Is it brief?
Is it brief?
I can hit some highlights if you'd like.
Please do.
That's up to the board. I mean, if you made the motion, then we don't have to hear it.
I don't need to hear it. I mean, I read it. No offense.
I read it too, but there are a lot of people here maybe who haven't and would like to know what we're voting on.
I mean, they certainly can read it. I don't know if there's any speakers cards or anything on it.
Okay. Hit the high areas, Melissa.
All right. This item was considered at the Planning Commission hearing. No citizens were present to speak against it. The property owner was present at that meeting, as she is present at this hearing in case you have any questions. Planning Commission recommended approval of the item unanimously. The land use for the property is Rural 2, and the proposed zoning district is allowable under that land use. The property will be served by Central Water, meeting the requirements of the Rural 2 land use. Flood zone on the property is C, listed at risk for minimal flooding. There are no environmentally sensitive features or wetlands known to be located on the property. The property is currently vacant, lightly wooded, and the advertisement for this appeared in the Wakulla News in the May 26, 2011 edition.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes, I have a question that's just peripherally related. What's going to happen with that 1 acre parcel?
That 1 acre piece, we have notified the property owners that it would not be eligible for a building permit in its current size. However, we've extended the offer that we'd be happy to sit down and discuss options with them for remedying that. But the 1 acre that was cut out of the middle of the property does not meet the minimum size requirements as it stands for zoning and land use.
And separating this out, there's still enough left to recombine with the 1 maybe to make that workable?
That is correct.
Okay. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Your next item is an application for change of zoning R1102. Randy Smith is the owner, and this property contains 17.76 acres. It's located at 12 Card Lane, and this is south of Bloxham Cutoff and to the east of Woodville Highway. Excuse me. Falling down on the job for the overhead pictures. There we go. And this is currently zoned agriculture, and in this application they're requesting a rezoning to RR5. The Planning Commission heard this at their June 13th hearing, unanimously recommend approval of the item. The land use is Rural 2, which allows RR5 as a permissible zoning district. The flood zone for the property is C, which is considered to be at risk for minimal flooding. Currently, there's a mobile home on the property, and wetlands may be present on the southernmost portion of this property, and that's something that the property owner is evaluating and looking into in regards to obtaining future building permits and how that could be affected.
I'll make a motion to conduct the first of 2 public hearings and consider the application for change of zoning R11-02 based upon staff recommendations or recommendations of the Planning Commission, and the findings of fact includes the law made by the board and any evidence submitted at the hearing herein, whatever, and accept staff report.
Motion and a second. Did you do the same thing as last time? Okay, go ahead.
If you have any ex parte communications, we
Spoke
can...
with staff again. Do we have to acknowledge that?
And if there is anyone here who's going to testify on this matter, including the property owner, if you're here and you want to answer any questions, please stand up and raise your right hand. Okay. You have to be sworn in.
Go ahead and stand up, sir, and we can swear you in case we have questions. Just in case.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Raise his left hand.
That's okay. He raised his other right hand.
I got you.
Okay.
Just raise a hand.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any more discussion? No citizens to be heard. All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And this one will come back.
That's correct. It will come back at the August 1st Board of County
Because that's the
Commission
first of two public hearings. You have to have another one.
Okay. Item 22.
All right, your next item is an application for comprehensive plan map amendment, CP 11-01. Mark and Lynn Henricks are the property owners, and Bruce Wiener is the agent. He is present here this evening for any questions or concerns. Essentially, the board looked at this small-scale map amendment in the spring. It actually came to the April 4th board meeting. It was approved and adopted as a small-scale amendment from an agricultural land use to rural one at that hearing and subsequently transmitted to DCA. DCA in its review determined that this small-scale amendment and the one that immediately adjoins it fell under the same ownership, which was, in their opinion, prohibited by Florida statute for a property owner to have two pieces of property adjoining that had gone through a land use within the last 12 months. So this amendment was sent back. And the Florida legislature in the last section actually removed the prohibition in the Florida statutes on a property owner owning two pieces of property that went through small-scale amendments within the last 12 months. And so now the applicant is resubmitting this, requesting that it be adopted again. And just to hit a couple of the highlights.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to conduct the second of two public hearings and vote to adopt proposed ordinance revoking ordinance 2011-05 and amending the comprehensive plan future land use map, amending the future land use map designation from agricultural, primary agricultural land use to rural one land use based upon the Planning Commission's recommendations and the findings of facts and conclusion of law made by the board and any evidence submitted at the hearing hereon and accepting staff reports. I think we've already voted on this.
Second. Yeah.
Yes. So we have a motion and a second. This is an administrative error that occurred. This is how we need to repair it. So, any more discussion? Got a couple of citizens.
That might be the
Randall Pell.
Next one.
I'm sorry. Next one. Never mind. We don't have one.
They don't need to swear in?
No.
This is a legislative matter.
Okay. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Sorry.
Item 23.
All right, your last planning and zoning item this evening is application for variance V10-06. Randall and Eva Pelt are the owners, and Edwin Brown and Associates are the agent, and I do see that Mr. Brown is here this evening. This request is to construct a house within the 75-foot wetland buffer on the property. In a nutshell, this property is almost all wetlands. It's actually 12 acres essentially of wetlands and about 0.95 acres of uplands. And this request would allow reasonable use of the property to allow them to construct a home within this area.
And we need to move. Hold on, let's do it the right way this time.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. This is a quasi-judicial matter, so again, if you have any ex parte communications, I have received one email that was opposed to it. I've already given that to Jessica, so that is in the record. If anyone else has any additional communications they'd like to disclose, now would be the time.
I received a phone call and an email. It may be the same email you're talking about.
Were they opposed or in favor?
Opposed.
Thank you.
I
Commissioner
think
Moore?
I got an email too now that I think about it.
Yeah, we all got the same email, and I gave her that email. You did get an email. And and I've given her the email I received, and we all were addressed on it, so.
And I'd like to add for the record that the recommendation is option 2 in this case, which is a recommendation for approval with conditions. It was a variance that would expire 2 years from the date of the approval, with authority granted to the planning department to extend that 2-year period for another 2 years if necessary, and to utilize best management practices for the protection of wetlands during construction.
Before we get to a motion, any other disclosure?
I just forwarded you, actually the same email. I had a correspondence with them back and forth a couple times, so I forwarded that to you.
Okay, if you could send it to Jessica, that would be, because I can't get my email here.
Motion to...
And we have to swear. Do you have communication?
I had some questions,
So let's
but
go ahead and
Okay.
swear in the...
If there's anyone here who's going to testify, please stand up. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Lynn?
yeah, I wanted to know about the status of the driveway.
The driveway was granted a conditional use approval by the Planning Commission at their public hearing.
Okay, let's get a motion on the floor.
I move to conduct the final public hearing and approve the application for variance B10-06 with conditions based upon the staff recommendation, the recommendation of the Planning Commission, and the findings of fact and conclusions of law made by the board and any evidence submitted at the hearing hereon.
Second.
That was with the conditional?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Arts, do you have any other comments?
I wanted just to say that this driveway is a new driveway through wetlands, is that correct? Their variance for?
That is correct.
They're still going to need a permit from the Corps of Engineers to build this driveway, correct?
They currently have
Okay, even, I'm saying that this wetlands, I know, that's fine, but I'm just saying this, whatever work is done, still requires a permit from the Corps. I know they have it. I'm just trying to explain in a larger sense. If we didn't have a wetlands ordinance, they'd still have to get a permit. Okay. That's what I'm trying to say.
But they would not have to for this,
Yes.
for the driveway, yes.
Yes,
which
but
has
not-
already been
that's
granted,
correct.
but not for the house.
That's correct.
And we're granting, our wetlands ordinance is one of the things that we're dealing with today because of the 75-foot buffer.
Buffer, that's right. That's why we're here, because of the buffer.
Not the wetlands, not the road, or not the boardwalk to the water either.
Because those are hands of the
Wade
planning.
Brown, you have any comments, or just here for questions?
Just here, questions,
Okay.
clarification.
Mr. Pelt? Same. Okay. Any questions for these gentlemen? Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back now, and we'll do the citizens to be heard portion.
Perfect timing.
Jenny Brock. Jenny Brock.
Oh, yeah. I know what your mother looks like.
Jenny Brock, 311 Old Magnolia Road. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just had a concern looking at item number 13 on the consent agenda, although it's already been passed. I wondered if you had thought, since this has been determined by some process, I'm not sure what, that having impact fees would cause builders not to build and people to choose not to move or come to Wakulla County. By the same process, I wonder if anybody has thought that if we increase the tourist development tax, would that not discourage tourists from visiting Wakulla County? I just wondered if that thought had occurred to anyone.
Okay, thank you. Hugh Taylor?
Thank you, Commissioners. Hugh Taylor, 1357 Martin Luther King Road. I'd like to speak briefly to one issue, censorship in developing policy or opening up policies for discussion. One kind is direct, as we witnessed last meeting, where a sitting commissioner was not allowed to continue his thought, and neither was a citizen. How we can develop or engage discussions by squashing discussion is beyond me. Another form of censorship beyond just the direct form is indirect. The tourist bed tax, which was on the consent agenda earlier, to increase taxes, was not taken off the agenda. You all were asked to take the item off the agenda, but there was no word. It's just another way to indirectly censor citizen input. It was proposed as a small procedural step on the way towards doubling a tax, doing it in such a way as to sweep citizen concerns and discussion under the rug. This has happened before, and I would remind the board that outsourcing and all of these things that we seem to be doing lately were the result of roughly the same situation. All procedural matters are political matters and policy considerations. And when you don't want public input and want the least said, the better when you have that thought. It doesn't advance the interests, I don't think, of the county. Thank you.
Charles Hickman.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening. My name is Charles Hickman. I reside at 528 Hickorywood Drive, and I am a little concerned. In these economic times, I'm concerned about the number of county employees who are being forced to accept furloughs with substantial pay reductions. When we, the county, and its citizens make a contract with a roofer or an air conditioning contractor, we expect and demand they live to the price quoted, unless, of course, there are substantial signed change orders amending the cost to the contractor, and I know a couple of you have a great amount of dealings with contractors. The last signed amended employment agreement contract this county has for the TDC director was in May 2010. This is a binding contract with the same implications as other contracts written daily throughout the business world. Other contractors are required to cover their own overhead expenses, such as an office and computers, telephones, copies, insurance, and anything else dealing with their business. Under Section 3, Part A, the compensation and benefits, the agreed compensation for this part-time position is $25,000 per year, regardless if the director works 1 hour or 80 hours. There is no provision for an hourly rate because that's the nature of a contractor. Part B states health insurance shall be available, quote, in the same manner as available to eligible Wakulla County employees. It does not say that the county will pay for it. Make no mistake, the TDC director is a contractor, not an employee. Since last October, the tourist director has received $29,250 compensation, a 17% increase over the contracted rate, plus an additional budgeted $7,745 for health care, bringing this contract from $25,000 to an annual rate of $37,000, a whopping 48% increase over the contracted rate while at the same time we have employees on furlough. Public records requests revealed that there have been no amended contract or any other officially approved paperwork to substantiate these changes, and as a citizen, I believe a refund is warranted. This commission may have violated their own contract and needs to do its due diligence and review closely what they not only put on the consent agenda, but what they pass when voting on that agenda. Thank you.
Vic Lambu.
Vic Lambu, 272 Pine Lane. Gentlemen and ladies, CCAL is going to have a public service forum on the establishment of Florida nutrient water quality criteria this Thursday at 7 p.m. at the Wakulla County Library. We'd like to invite every one of you to attend, and I hope some or all of you will attend. I'm sure you are aware that the proposed establishment of these criteria is extremely controversial and has spawned a series of lawsuits. At the present, there are at least 8 challenges to the U.S. EPA criteria setting Florida water quality nutrients criteria, 1 from the Florida State Attorney and the State Commission of Agriculture, and lawsuits from the Florida League of Cities and Florida Stormwater Association. And I'm sure, as you've heard earlier, and you know that nutrients loading into Wakulla Springs has been very contentious, and it has spawned lawsuits. The new criteria that EPA is setting for Florida has been very controversial, and what's been argued against them is that they're going to be too costly. At the forum, we're going to have Linda Young, who is director of the Clean Water Network and is one of the most qualified people in Florida to speak on the subject. We think this would be an excellent opportunity for you, every one of you, the public, professionals, and everyone in the county to get educated, and we hope you will attend. Thank you.
Howard Kessler.
Good evening, Howard Kessler, and I'm speaking tonight as chair of Wakulla County Concerned Citizens, or CCAL, as many of you know, Concerned Citizens of Wakulla. I would like to mention first on the speaker that we're having at CCAL on this Thursday. The meeting begins, the speaker will begin at 7 o'clock. There's a brief social before it at 6:30. And I think it'd be very valuable to attend that. We're lucky to have her come from Pensacola. I'm here tonight to speak on the consent agenda. And the consent agenda is meant for items that are routine and non-controversial. Tonight's agenda has been approved, and the consent agenda contained an item that asks the board to approve to advertise for a public hearing. If approval at that public hearing, it would double the tax. Citizens have asked the commissioners to pull that item so they could speak to it. The citizens need to be heard, and they need to be heard from more, not less. What is the harm of letting the citizens speak now and again at the public hearing? Citizens can offer and provide new ideas and solutions to problems. Tonight you lost an opportunity for additional input. Thank you.
Gail Hickman.
Gail Hickman, I live at 528 Hickory Wood. I requested the item under the consent agenda proposed by the Tourist Development Director be pulled for discussion because I believe levying taxes
is such an important issue that it warrants full review. I have attended board meetings now for several years and have watched issues voted on and passed by the board with little input from the citizens. Increasing the tourist tax from 2% to ultimately 4% is a 100% increase. For a small county, that should be big news. Citizens have good ideas, and as commissioners representing the people, you should want to hear their ideas. That's why I felt it was valuable to precede the public hearing with an option for citizens to speak. When a county levies a tax, it no doubt has a negative impact somewhere. Do benefits from this tax outweigh the impact of the tax? During the last meeting, all commissioners voted for this increase without hesitation. So I ask you, what did you have in mind for this tax? That is the most important question we have regarding this agenda item. How are we going to utilize the money once it's received? Do we have a master plan? Do we have any plan? The agenda item states we will have more promotional items such as flyers, tear-off maps, videos, improvement to website, and once again for the second year, the director will be talking about an increase in her hours. This agenda is not the appropriate place to even mention director's hours. This is about taxes. In fiscal year ending 2010, we collected in bed tax $46,500. The proposed 100% increase should push that figure to $80,000 or $90,000. It is my belief we definitely need a plan, and this plan should replace the words increase production of promotional items. The words in our agenda should outline a solid plan that contains a portion of these taxes dedicated to capital improvements. Our Civic Center, Museum, and Welcome Center are all grant projects that are in limbo and dire need of our attention. Until we can make a forward-looking plan, I think this agenda should be put aside. Thank you.
Ronald Fred Crum.
Thank you, Commissioners. I just going to do a double take here. I'll come to support Ben, but also to extend an invitation. You know, a few months ago I talked to you about the oyster relay, and Commissioner Moore understands we've had a lot of battles, but we've signed a new contract, and let me share with you what's taking so much time. What we're trying to do is take a $50,000 CDBG grant that we have. We're trying to move 22,000 bushels of oysters. These are going to be legal live oysters, as higher a percentage as we can. We want to take them from Point A, closed, that can never be harvested because of the close proximity to the possibility of pollution. Now, people think that oyster is polluted. He's not. He's a close proximity, so therefore Department of Agriculture stops you from harvesting there. You'll move them to Point B. 21 days or thereafter, you can reharvest those oysters. They're good oysters. You don't have to grow them. They've grown. So we're trying to, and what we're going to be working with you with, we need accounting. See, Wakulla County and all the commercial fishermen that are registered during the BP deal was accredited to Franklin County. We need them accredited to here. I found that at the legislature and started trying to turn that around. We need our records here. But we're going to try to go for $50,000 grant, be an immediate impact to the coastal communities as far as salaries. We're going to try to do a $300,000 return harvest within the first months after we plant, and then over the season try to do an additional $300,000, all from that original $50,000. Can we do that? Probably not, but we set the goal very high. The second week of August, already a lot of the dignitaries are coming. The Secretary of Agriculture, they've looked at it, the senators and several other people. We're trying to get the governor, and we'd like to invite our commissioners, maybe one at a time. But we have a resource here with last week, set up by the governor, I spoke to the cabinet affairs people, one-on-one. And what I said is, our oceans are a golden goose that lays an egg. We protect the goose, but we can take that egg and we can help reduce the budget deficit. They like that. And I also spoke to the legislature this year, the Joint Administrative Procedures Committee, with the same message, and they like that. So, we've kept expanding the issue, but in Wakulla County, we do have a resource here, and we can work these people. I think BP may contribute a couple $1 million to the counties here and I pushed them hard on oyster relay. If it's doled out to the people, not as an entitlement, but to enhance their future. And I think what we've done over the last few years and the battles we've had is we've shown them if you use this money, you use it wisely, you move a good product, and you have an easy reharvest, and it's not a waste. If you can get a 10 times return on your money, it's worth it. But I welcome you. We'll have transport there for some of the staff. I'd like, somewhere here in Wakulla County, we do have a value here. We need to work it for jobs, and we will transport you there for knowledge to learn the system. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Danzy.
Hi, my name is Bob Danzy. I live at 9 Springview in Spring Creek. I wasn't here last meeting. I missed it. But I missed one meeting and y'all went up on my taxes. So I didn't give him a chance to say it then, so I chose to say it now. And I won't beat the dead horse. I know what's done is done. But I would like to show my support for Commissioner Moore for voting against it. I appreciate that. And I would like to ask one of the other four to bring those taxes back up and to vote for you to vote against them. What I mean is just be a little more creative. Those taxes, if I read it right, won't be. They won't start charging those taxes until January. We got basically 5 months to be more creative than just going up on taxes. And the reason I'm saying this, I've done some research. There's a telephone tax. All businesses have telephones. There's basically energy and water, but mostly restaurants are taking a beating on this energy and water. And it's $300 or $400 a month. I mean, their light bill, water bill, most of them use natural gas or some sort of propane. You're talking $3,000 to $4,000 a month, and that's an employee. And this goes right in the face of trying to create jobs. I don't know that it's going to cost one, but it could. Simply with what they're going to have to put out there to come back to the county. I know the county has to have money. I'm not foolish. I understand that. But I'd like to try to be more creative. And what Mr. Crum said, I don't know if it creates jobs. I don't know a lot about what he was talking about. But I appreciate him saying it. And if that's something that we can do, what we need, I think one of our senators said it this past week, we need more people working than more taxes. And more taxpayers than taxes. And that's all I'm asking. I appreciate what you did. I appreciate you doing what you think you have to do and make hard decisions. But if there's any way to look at those, especially in this environment, to help our local businesses. And that's really what I'm here to represent, is the businesses. Thank you.
Okay. Pam Portwood.
Pam Portwood, 1184 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Road. Just wanted to say that as the TDC director and on behalf of the Tourist Development Council, we are always there to answer questions. I'm available for meetings or anything. Anytime anybody has any questions about what we do and how we do it, we're happy to answer them. We don't want to squelch anybody's right to speak or right to an opinion. And also, I just wanted to clear up, I did include in the agenda item that some of the monies could be spent for additional hours for the Tourist Development Council Director. That is not, this agenda item does not in any way do that. And raising the tax doesn't do that. That is a process that goes through our council and then comes through here through the budget process. Now, if that process needs to be changed, then let's please change it, because I can't pay back, thousands of dollars on a contract. So, we're here to answer questions, and we look forward to the public hearing and the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the citizens to be heard. We'll move back into the general business items.
Okay, Commissioner. Oops. Lost my place. First item on general business is the request board approval for change order number 2 to the Wakulla County Force Main project. Basically, the bulk of this change order is for fiberglass wet well, additional cost for project specifications. So that would bring the total change order to $26,406.71.
Move to approve change order number 2 in the amount of $26,406.71 for the Wakulla County Force Main project.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any citizens to be heard? Board discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Skipping to 26. This is a request board authorization to advertise for Director of Planning and Community Development. As you're all aware, Lindsay Stevens resigned on June 20th. We're looking to re-advertise her position. We've included a position description that was formulated prior to her hire, and we request direction on
authorize staff to reclassify and advertise position as Director of Planning and Community Development.
Second.
A motion and a second to re-advertise the position. Discussion, Mr. Moore?
Yes, I have some discussion on that. I think we're getting the cart before the horse. We have a new administrator that's coming on in October, and to put his staff on, I don't think is the proper thing to do. I think he should be the one who decides his staff and the way that that particular position should be considered. So I won't vote for any re-advertise nor any change, because I think our new administrator should have that discretion to pick his staff. He shouldn't be saddled with something that we put on him.
I agree with Jerry. I mean, not that Tim couldn't make a good decision, but Tim's not going to be that person's boss here in a couple months, and I think the new administrator should pick the person. We can certainly make it without a director for a little while. Go ahead.
And I don't know, you may not, I don't know if you have or you haven't, I didn't ask questions regarding that issue. If you haven't included David in the process, maybe ask him to make sure he's read over this, and maybe include him one way or the other in the hiring process. But I do think we need to advertise. We're not planning to hire this position and have them start until after October, but I think we should be moving forward with advertising so we can fill the position, so that we can continue to move forward with planning and zoning projects that need that approval.
If it's the board's pleasure, we could ask Mr. Edwards to be on the committee and be part of the evaluation process, and that way he's picking an employee with an anticipated start date of October 1st for the position. So
now, ultimately, Tim, is a committee picking this person, or the administrator picks it?
We usually go by the recommendation of a committee, so it's usually an evaluation committee, and I've never overturned evaluation committee recommendation. So
I mean, I would be, well, I guess you'd never have, but it is possible that you could, right? And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but the committee may pick someone that he doesn't really like. That's a possibility. And he would not have the authority to say no.
Let's just make the assumption that maybe Mr. Edwards decides that that's not a position that he wants to fill.
Okay.
So why would we fill a position that he may have some other...
We're going to have a director of planning.
That's true.
So that's a position that we're going to fill.
I spoke with Mr. Edwards today, and he's here, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, he's welcome to correct me, but the impression that I got from Mr. Edwards is that he agrees that the position ought to be filled. I agree with you, Mr. Moore, that he ought to have a say in it, but I think the approach that Mr. Brock is proposing, that David have a seat at the table on the decision-making of that person, and we're going to hear from that committee. If I don't think it's going to happen before October 1, but they can certainly get started now so that soon after October 1, they will have been part of that process, and he can say, yeah, we made a good decision, or we need to start over. I think we need to get moving.
It's okay, it's his position, well, he's not on yet, but it's his position to make the determination. Let's just pretend that he is on. So I'm saying that it should be his decision as to how and who and where that person comes on board.
And I don't disagree with that. I'm saying that let's get that, like Alan suggested, let's start the process now so that we're not 2 months in a
Okay,
career.
we can do that.
I mean, I'm not adverse to that either, as long as the person isn't officially hired till after he's sitting, so he has the option to veto the decision of the committee.
I agree.
On the committee, I think that's great. If we want to move forward with advertising, that's good. I don't...
That's a good idea.
The qualifications, I think, are these the same used last time, or did we substitute experience for...
We used to hire Lindsay.
It says masters and AICP certification are preferred, not required. Bachelor's degree required, because we're voting on that now, too. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have... Is there a way to substitute experience for a bachelor's degree in these, like we did with the county administrator?
I think our planning director needs to have a degree in planning.
I think Donnie did a fine job, and he didn't have a degree. I know that's not what you're saying, but...
I'll go back to the same way we did on the administrator. If we have somebody, if the administrator decides that this particular person that he chooses is qualified, it's his skin if they don't do the job. And to say that somebody is not qualified because they don't have an education or a master's degree is just...
The way this is read right now, Jerry, you couldn't apply for it unless you had a degree.
Well, I'll vote against that.
Go ahead.
Bachelor's degree.
Get back to where we need it to be. So what are you suggesting, Randy, that are you saying, what are you suggesting in place of a...
I'm suggesting we use the same language we use for county administrator. Any combination of experience, blah, 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 may be substituted for that. It's the same thing we did for administrator.
What number of years? Same as the administrator?
What was it, 5 or 10 or
15? 10.
They have 10 years experience and no degree. Yeah.
The planner for a local government.
There you go.
A 10 years experience in planning, not as a planner. That's my thoughts.
And what level of planning, though? I mean,
when you say, like, you need to give planning a better definition, because planning can be event planning, and event planning doesn't lead to...
Land use planning. Land use planning.
I'm just being...
And we have to have some faith that our committee's going to pick the right person, too. I just don't... You understand what I'm saying? We're not going to be the ones deciding it. We're just saying who can apply for the job. He's going to decide who to hire the person. We're just saying who can even apply for it.
I think we've probably got some in-house people who can do this job as good as anyone possibly. They may not have the degrees or whatever, but I think they could do an extremely good job, and they're already here. So I think we ought to explore staying in-house with as much as possible.
Well, since the hire date's not till after October 1st, that's up to that man sitting right back there.
I think
if we agree to his contract, by the way.
I agree. If he makes, yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. So
that's my motion.
We have a motion.
I mean, I added on the qualifications because we're voting to yes hire, and here's the qualifications.
It's not clear to her what the motion is, so you need to state your motion.
True. Let me see. I made the motion myself.
Oh,
so yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Alan, it's up to you.
Let's just vote on it that way.
That's right. You're right. Just telling you my opinion.
I understand. I'm trying to figure out how to word this at the moment in my mind. You want to add in 10 years experience as a qualifier, as a substitute for a bachelor's degree.
I think you need to say it needs to be a county as a county planner. I'm not going to vote.
Okay.
I'm not going to.
If you have 10 years experience as a county planner, a bachelor's degree, and a master's in AICP certification or its equivalent is preferred.
Maybe not county planner, but county planning.
County planning.
Okay.
Exactly.
And I think you got to have that.
The statement is right here. Progressively responsible, independent office work with planning and zoning experience.
That's good.
So,
That's what we already have.
A bachelor's degree is required. Master's in AICP certification or its equivalent preferred. 5 years of progressively responsible independent office work with planning and zoning experience with 3 years of supervisory experience. Or...
I want to do away with that bachelor's.
Right. No, we're not getting rid of the bachelor's. I'm trying to figure out... Or 10 years requirement of...
If you say 5 years of additional experience can be substituted for the bachelor, that would make it 10 total.
Yeah, or 5 years of additional experience could be substituted for the bachelor's in consideration.
Perfect.
Okay.
And again, so I want to reiterate, I think a master's in AICP certification of its equivalent is preferred, is also a remaining part of this.
Picking the person either, so just keep that in mind too.
Okay. So you got all that, Evelyn? All right, so we got a motion and a second. We have a couple citizens. Chuck Hess.
I guess we're going to get into the education discussion again. A lot of the reason people get an education is so they have the knowledge of the complexity of jobs. And you're starting to think that, it doesn't seem to be important to some people. To me, it seems to be a real important thing. Because, a person gets an education because they look forward and they see what's coming in the future and they plan for what's coming in the future. You got a planner coming up. You need somebody that can plan for the future. That means that they did those kind of things when they were young. Now, your local planning and zoning is right now going to be bringing you about 20 items that were, planned. People already built their houses, but nothing's been done right as far as planning and zoning. And now you're going to have to just blanket give these approval, whether they're, whether we would have wanted to do this or not, because planning and zoning in the past didn't do it right. And so it seems to me that you do need a good qualified P&Z director, and you need somebody that has some experience and some education on this item. Thank you.
Okay. John Schuff. Okay. So any more discussion?
I'm going to say, because I agree with a lot of what Chuck is saying right now. If someone has 10 years of progressive responsibility, independent office work with planning and zoning experience, and not a college degree, I don't mind considering them in the application process. I don't anticipate there being many people who meet that qualification. I'll be honest, putting it out there.
I mean, they get the job.
And it doesn't mean they get the job. So
there's lots of candidates out there. DCA just run a bunch of planners off from the state, so there's folks out there that are certainly well qualified that could apply and be interviewed. So I think we'll have an adequate amount of folks stepping up for a job. And
there may be somebody local that's qualified.
I know. I from experience, you know how much I have of that here. For what it counts, I know how we have had our feet held to the fire because of poor decisions made in planning at one time or another. We just got to be careful. And I talked to David about that today, Mr. Edwards, and I'll talk more about it to him later. And I know he understands the complexity of it, and I know he wants to have somebody who's qualified to look him in the eye and make good informed decisions from that information. So I think we can make that work. So anyway, any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And that's all general business? Mr. Barton?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioner agenda items. And for whatever reason, mine's first, and I will start there. Request board consideration and approval of salary and benefit package of newly appointed county administrator, Mr. David Edwards. And y'all all have that in your packages. And I was tasked by the board to meet with him. I did so with the attorney. We met on one occasion and discussed all his requirements, and what you see there before you is what has been proposed, and it's pretty simple. And I didn't talk to him again when I wrote the agenda item to make sure we'd gotten it all right, but the bottom line is the salary will be $82,825. That's the minimum, and we all had agreed to not more than 10% above that minimum, which the minimum was $75,300, so that brought his starting salary to $82,825. The benefits would be the same as other county employees. The start date would be October 1. Family insurance, in other words, that would be fully paid. He would not make a contribution to that, but that would be a fully paid amount. Short-term disability insurance, county cell phone, a county vehicle, our vehicle allowance. We talked more about that today, and he has determined that he would like a county vehicle, vice a county vehicle allowance, and agreement for the county to defend Mr. Edwards, which only makes sense for any actions that may arise out of his official duties, which is the norm for this kind of position.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I have grief with is any benefits, and I said this in my first meeting when I was sworn in, any benefits above what anybody else is getting. So if we're paying for his insurance premium, we're not paying for any employee sitting over there's insurance premium. And I don't know the short-term disability, why is that there?
That's in the event, that was a requirement that he asked, in the event he had a heart attack or became disabled and couldn't work, that this would pay his salary.
Do they have that?
No.
Well, that's my opinion.
This is what y'all asked me to do.
Yes, sir.
I've done that. Don't kill the messenger.
No.
If we want to change it, we'll change it. But Mr. Edwards is here, and he'll have to agree to that, and then we need to move on.
That's what I'd like to see personally, is whatever benefit he has, the employees have. I mean, I think that'll foster, some morale.
So you're saying that the family insurance, he needs to make the same contribution as every other employee.
Yes.
And he doesn't, and he wouldn't receive the short-term disability insurance.
And I advocated for David, so I don't have any hard feelings for him. But I want to be consistent and fair. Okay. That's what I said, and that's what I'm sticking to.
Mr. Edwards, can you come up and we'll negotiate right here and get this settled? I hate to do this to you, but that's the only way we can do it, because we can't meet in private with you and each other. So, is that acceptable?
That may not be what y'all want. So,
well, I want to ask him if that's acceptable to him first, and if you say no, then we'll have to debate it.
Right. No, I think so. The reason for the short-term disability was in other positions I've held, is that was just part of the overall package that got, and it's a good benefit. But I understand if it's not offered, I don't have a problem with that part of it.
And I noticed there's no severance pay, which I think, is that correct?
That's correct.
I think that's good.
I would like to say also that basically David was my choice, but I agree with Randy that you'll have to live with your salary, and you get the same thing that everybody else has. I think that was a good decision.
And we have no cell phone allowance like was in the past, so his phone is subject, or will be subject to public records requests and everything, just like mine, yours, or anybody else's.
It doesn't matter whether you have an allowance or not, they can get your phone.
Well, I understand. If you're talking,
you have a cell phone policy that he'll be required just like any other employee to follow.
This is absolutely fine with me.
So I move to accept with the amendment,
which is that he contribute to the health insurance like every other employee, and that there be no
the county will not provide
short-term disability insurance.
Correct.
So I don't know if anybody's done the math, but I don't know what that brings the total to now. It's a different total than I had here. I had a total of $112,000. That was with FRS and all. $112,566. That'll be substantially less now.
Now the FRS is this is the first state check I've ever received, by the way. But I shouldn't say that. Retirement with retirement benefits. But anyway, that's what the state contributes, or that's what the county contributes to his retirement, right?
Yes.
Just like they contribute to everybody else's retirement.
Yes.
Okay. So it's nothing special. I know that the previous administrator had a special deferred comp benefit where we paid all this extra money into that.
There was lots of difficulty with that.
Did you second? Second.
I do want. Well, now it's been second. I do want to raise the issue. We're providing him. We're providing you a vehicle, but you've stated that you don't want. We're not buying a new vehicle. You're going to take one of the vehicles from our fleet.
That's right.
I talked to the attorney today about one of the new vehicles we have, and we're going to ascertain can that be used, and if not, we'll have another one for him. So there'll be a vehicle.
I talked to Mr. Edwards also about a vehicle, and my suggestion to Mr. Edwards was that he take a vehicle that's whatever, as long as it had cooling and heating.
Because hopefully he'll be out around the county quite a bit more than previous. And
I think it'll be a truck. Or you get in
I
a
think
truck.
that's what you're looking at.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Stewart.
We're going to give him a beat-up station wagon.
Fine. I don't. The only thing I care is that he's cool and he's got heat.
Might have an SUV,
floors.
small SUV from housing,
They all have
from building.
No CD player.
Okay, any more discussion?
There's no cruise. Cars are horrible.
Yeah, I guess I was surprised because when you were saying you weren't going to do any benefits other than what any other employees get, I thought that meant the vehicle was out.
I think
but
he
now
has to have a vehicle to do his job.
Yeah.
He is the county
We
administrator.
have a lot of.
We have a lot of employees who do have vehicles.
Hopefully he's not going to be sitting around in his office.
I guess maybe what Ms. Arts is saying, and let's be clear on this, is this vehicle assigned to him and he drives it home every night? Or is it, what, David, I mean, I know when Parrish was here, I think he drove his truck home and he drove it to work.
And I think it should go
But
home.
you can't use it for vacations or...
Told him that, we explained that to him today. He
you
can't haul
can't
his
drive the
family
truck.
around, he can't go to the
I'm
grocery
fine with
store.
that. That's the same thing I had when I was project manager over
But
there.
but if he doesn't take it home, it's foolish to even do it because I'm going to have the expectation
That's right.
that if I call him in the middle of the night, he's going to get in it and go wherever that is.
I agree, 100%.
That's not a special benefit. That's a required benefit. He has to have that automobile.
I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we're giving him. I don't know that it's
it's
not a
perk.
requirement of the job that he has.
I don't think it's a perk. I mean, the man's on call, just like Parrish was. We have a hurricane or something. I don't think it's a perk. I'm sorry.
I think we're going to agree to it. And I don't want. Well, never mind. I don't want to go down this tangent.
Just don't. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't
Go
mean to
ahead.
interrupt you or
I'll
whatever.
finish when you're done.
Okay. Well, thanks for clarifying that because I thought when we were just doing same as all the other employees that was out. But anyway, I'm concerned that given the finances of the county and the fact that other employees are taking furloughs and whatever, we're taking an entry-level administrator and giving him a 10% raise. And, you know, I'm sorry, Tim Barden is doing the same job for $75,300 minus 23%. And, you know, I'm sorry, now I had proposed an alternative that made sense to me is go with the minimum salary and do performance bonuses. For example, if he can reduce our energy expenditures by $100,000, he can get a $10,000 bonus. But then we know where that $10,000 is coming from because he saved us a $90,000. You know, this way, what you're saying is in addition to paying Tim, we've got to come up with another $10,000, $20,000. And, you know, it doesn't, for all the talk about cutting, this is inconsistent in my opinion. So I'm just explaining. I'm not going to support it.
Let me say one thing.
Let her finish. Let her finish, please.
I would be fully prepared to support the minimum with incentive bonuses so that he could earn more, but not just a 10% raise off the top.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. At that same meeting where I said he should get the same benefits, I said, let's set the salary at the minimum. And everybody said, no, we need to do minimum at least 10% more. I don't know if you remember that discussion. This is what we decided. This is what I agree with. That's right.
I thought it was no more than.
That's what we said was that to find a good employee that we would want here, that gave us a range, not just the minimum, but gave us a range to work with. This is what David's asked for. Here's where I agree with you, Miss Arch, but David has been very cooperative, and you know, he could have very easily come in here and demanded a severance package. He could have demanded a lot of other things. Now, that don't mean we had to pay him. We could have sat up here and said, no, we'll go to the next candidate, but he didn't. And he said he stood here tonight and took some more cut. In fact, he's going to have to pay into his health insurance and not getting this other thing he wanted. But so I think that's. I agree with you. He's coming in higher than the lower end. But I'm expecting that we're going to get a good man that's going to do a good job, and he's going to have a big learning curve, and he's going to hit the deck running, and he's going to have to work some long and hard hours to do that. And I think he's already prepared to do that. I know he and I have talked about it in length, and I'm prepared to assist him as much as I can to help him achieve and be successful. And I hope that everybody else will, and I think everybody will. So I'm fine with that, with the salary where we're at. Jerry?
I'm going to, if I can, I may jump ahead of you a little bit just while David's standing here on my...
we're not going to entertain that right now. But
I thought it might be appropriate, and I'll leave this to your discretion. After Randy made a suggestion, we let David respond. I don't know if you want to, after Lynn's suggestion, let David respond.
David?
Y'all have done a good job responding for me.
Okay.
No, I'm fine.
I mean, I don't want to put you in an awkward
Right.
situation. We already got you in an awkward situation.
Right.
And I appreciate you standing up and offering that. You could have easily said no,
Right.
and we would have had to fought it out here, but
I think knowing when not to talk is probably as important
Yes.
as knowing when to.
I agree.
Okay.
So, any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you. Next item is I'm requesting the board to appoint a member to the Capital Area Community Action Agency Board of Directors. This is a requirement in our housing department. It's got to either be a commissioner or a citizen. So, preferably a commissioner. I would be glad to do it, but I can't do it justice. 'Cause I think they meet what did you tell me, once a month?
Once a quarter, I think.
6 meetings per year, so.
Ms. Arts, would you like to do it?
No, I had a citizen I was going to ask, but I haven't had a chance yet.
Could we defer that to another time?
I think that according to this agenda item, we got to do it now.
We need to do it.
We're kind of already.
I was going to nominate Jerry.
No, I don't. I can't accept that.
Okay.
I'll nominate Alan then.
I'm on several committees right now. I was going to nominate Jerry. I don't know how obligated he was. That was going to be my idea, that he might enjoy getting to know a little bit more about Capital Area
Not really.
Community Action Agency.
Ms. Arts, would you be willing to do it?
I'd prefer not to.
I can do CACAA. I have one more thing for the time being.
You make a motion, Mr. Merritt, to appoint.
I make a motion that we appoint a public sector member of the Capital Area Community Agency Board of Directors, and Alan Brock shall be that person.
Alan, if I can find an interested citizen, would you entertain the idea?
Yeah, I'll do this in the interim.
Come back to the board and replace them, yes.
Yeah, and I will not object to someone coming back with a reasonable suggestion.
I'm sure there's plenty of.
Okay, do we hear a second then?
I second.
All right. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Brock. We'll whip you later. Some stick. The last item I have is request board approval to schedule a workshop regarding FUGWA to present on the utility, on the ownership of the sewer system.
Move to approve to schedule a workshop on August 4th to follow FUGWA to approve a presentation regarding utility ownership.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second for August 4th on FUGWA. I think do I need to explain that to anybody?
I
Or
don't mean to cut you off. You might want to explain it so people know.
Well, just so the public understands, it's a private, it's a government public utility that would come in and take over our system. He had I want y'all to hear the sewer system. I want y'all to hear the presentation to the board. We seriously need to consider it. I think it's something we should have done a long time ago. And we can never make money with sewer because we don't have any water, and they sort of go hand in hand. But these folks can make it work, and I think but I want y'all to hear the whole presentation and then assess it on your own. But anyway, August 4th, that's what it's about. So we have a motion and a second for August 4th. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Are there any other workshops that night?
That's going to be the 3rd.
And
I wanted to make sure that they're not dictated from this time to that time. In other words, if we finished early, we can move on to the next, you know what I'm saying?
Good point. Can we do that? Yeah. We don't have workshops.
I know they probably will last an hour, but
Okay, I'm with you.
Lord help us,
I
they
agree
only
with
last
3.
30 minutes.
Okay, Mr. Merritt, your items.
All right, I got a item to allow accessory uses on, accessory uses on vacant lots. Right now, you cannot do that. For example, if you own 2 lots in Wakulla Gardens side by side, or 3 lots, you can't get a permit to go put a shed on it, even a portable shed, because our rules don't allow you to do it. And this all came up because I just built a addition on a house in Mashit Sands, and he owns 2 lots. The one next to him, he wanted to put a boat ramp or a dock on that second lot. He can't do it underneath our laws. If my grandma, rest her soul, had given me a lot in Smith Creek on the river, I couldn't go put a dock on it to go take my kids fishing, because according to our rules, you got to have a house there first. I just want to change it, and you know, the main thing I want to change is, let me get my tab here just so everybody understands. I have a tab. That you can't have a power pole on it. Basically, here's what I want to add. Accessory structures are allowed in residential districts where the accessory structure is located on property that is contiguous with the property on which the primary use is located. In other words, you can't go buy a lot somewhere and go put a shed on it and not have a house. You know, there are ag exemptions, of course, but you can't just go buy a lot in Wakulla Gardens or a lot in Brook Forest and just go build a garage on it without a house being there first. Accessory structures which are intended for water access and marine uses are allowed in residential districts on properties that have no primary structure. No accessory structure shall be allowed to install a separate electric meter to service the accessory structure.
Okay, back up to the marine one now. What?
Accessory structures which are intended for water access or marine use. Those would be docks, boat ramps.
But you couldn't put a shed on there.
No. Not unless you own the lot next to it. If you're contiguous to it, yes. But you can't just buy a lot in Oyster Bay that's vacant and go put a dock and a shed on it. And you can't get power to it either. So if you get a boat lift, it's got to be solar.
All right. I'm fine with that, as long as
that's it. I mean, as
long as it's contiguous. Okay, I'm with
or
you.
it's marine.
So it's either, what you're doing is making, so a contiguous lot under common ownership can have accessory uses put on it.
Exactly.
Or what the other thing that it would change is would allow marine accessory uses to be put on any lot. Is that right, Randy?
Yes, exactly right. You understand the reason and why.
Second. Okay, we got a motion and a second.
Done talking.
All right, Chuck Hess. Bob Dansky.
I'd just like to say I support it. I'll keep it short and
Thank
sweet.
you. That's good. Okay. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion
Aye.
carries. Up. Passes 4-1. Got that, Evelyn? Okay.
This will come back as a public hearing, is that correct, as an ordinance? Okay.
It'll have to go to planning. And
2 hearings or 1?
It'll have to go to planning and then here.
Okay.
Just 1 public hearing.
Okay. Commissioner Brock.
All right, I'm going to talk about, and this is going to go into 2 divergent ways. So I'm going to start with the first one, and then I'm going to talk about the second one. The first one, and they're both furlough related. One, I'm going to talk about the library furloughs, and then I'm going to talk about our staff furloughs, some. But I want to do the library furloughs first. As you can see, I've spelled out in this item that the way our library funding works in Wakulla County, and we've had presentations, and I think everyone's aware of this. Currently, every dollar we spend in the library, 2 years later, we get 50 cents. And we take that 50 cents, which makes up about 1/3 of our current budget, and run our library off of that. So we have staff positions funded with that. We purchase materials, and we continue to keep our library open using the state aid dollars, is what that is called. By furloughing our library, not only are we reducing services to our community because the library is used for common meeting space, internet access, books, entertainment, but we're also reducing future payments that our library will receive in the future, which will reduce the amount of services we'll be able to provide 2 years from now. I would like to include the library in the section of our community, of our employments under admin that are not being furloughed for the remainder of the year. And that's my motion, to remove furloughs from the library.
How's it? Wait a second.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay.
Tim, how's our budget doing? Are we going to need to continue these furloughs through the year?
My second conversation goes into all our staff.
Or, I'm hoping, how's the excess jail bed revenues looking from the sheriff's department? I don't know if that...
They seem to be exceeding the mark. That's been a question that I've been asked many times in the last few weeks as to we need to do the furloughs for the rest of the year.
Anticipated, well, do you have a note?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Sorry.
Let's try to keep it germane to the library right now, and then if you're going to talk separately about the rest of the furloughs.
Well, I'll say, anticipated right now, we're looking at having $188,000 left over at the end of the year after all of it. If things can maintain at the current balance, left over in surplus funds after all of our balances are added together.
And the budget itself had $240,000 coming out of reserve. Is that correct, Tim?
Right.
210. But we're on track at this point to not. Are we not going to pull those monies out of reserve then? Not need them, or we're instead of pulling 210 out, we're going to pull out enough.
Well, issue with the 210 is it puts you in a hole. You already started in a hole, so you've got to build yourself out of that hole then some. So that's kind of where we were in the reductions that we were making. I think it's just it's hard to pinpoint. Trust me, I'm working to get them reduced myself. I mean, they impact me. They impact the work that we do because we're here one day less a week, and so we've got to double up on the amount of work we can get done in 4 days.
If you had a crystal ball and you could see to October 1 and you knew those jail bed revenues were going to come in excess, would that make a difference on whether you could end the furloughs or not?
Absolutely.
If you knew that was coming in. But the problem is we don't know that. We think they are.
It's an unknown. We can't.
There's many moving parts, and like I said, I'm going to be meeting with the clerk's office this week and seriously sit down and see if there's some way we could at least pull back to maybe once a pay period.
You got this, Tim?
Staff some relief.
I have spoke with Tim, and I've spoken with the clerk's office in detail. I just emailed you all, Tim, Evelyn, and Heather, the most current updated balance fund sheet. If you want to open that up in your email on your computer, which you can.
Does the recent resignations, I assume they help our bottom line, correct?
The number
yes, absolutely. Lindsay's.
And I will say the document I sent you says $168,000 is the final balance. I added in $20,000 because that's the anticipated savings from Lindsay's position, which is not on the document I just emailed all of you.
I think we all agree that if there's any way not to furlough people, I mean, that was our next to last choice besides laying somebody off.
Well, we're all doing it up here as well. I mean, everybody's feeling the pain. Well,
I'm afraid we really need to leave it up to Tim.
Well, so you've got two different things, and I had the conversation with Tim. One of the things Tim has asked is that we give him this direction so that he understands. So so the issue with the library is one, by not spending this money on the library, we're going to have reduced revenue in 2 years, which means that in 2 years we're going to have less money to provide library services, which means to continue our library at the current funds that we're spending on it, we're going to have to increase our revenue, and no one is currently anticipating us having extra money. So we may end up having to lay people off in 2 years because we've reduced salary furloughs for 5 days now.
We have some money that can be spent on the library. You know that.
I do.
It's $70,000 that if some of it, if you don't spend soon, you're going to lose.
Correct.
Impact fees. If you obligate some of that money, that will offset the difference in these furlough days, and you won't lose any funding in 2 years.
And I believe we're obligating that money towards next year's budget, but that doesn't affect this year's budget, which affects 2 years from now. Next year's budget will affect 3 years from now. I'm putting it. This is me. I think the library provides. Not only does the library provide services that are directly beneficial to most of our community, the funding structure requires that we can't really change the funding structure.
And Alan, I'd say the Parks Department supplies it. I'd say the Building Department supplies it. The Planning and Zoning Department. I mean, you can't.
And that's why I focus mainly on the funding. Only the library has matching funds.
Alan, you miss.
I'm not missing. Well,
missing my point.
Okay.
I agree with the library. I love the library. I wish we could give them double their pay. We can't. So we got, I mean, you got $70,000 in a fund that's been floating there for a while that I know is going to probably be used for some CIP project next year. But times are tough. And now is the way to be creative and say, all right, let's move some of that $70,000 money there and use it.
Well, and if you want to direct staff in a way to bring back, to change our budget around from this year, move funds from the...
You can't do that. You can't take that money and put it in there and not do furloughs.
That's not what I was going to say. And you get me wrong. And I think I proposed that in my budget, in my item. I haven't reread it recently. I think one of the options I put in there was spend other money on the library, keep the furlough days, and spend other money to keep the funds equal. So if you want to, and Scott may have to come and address this because I know impact fees can be spent on some things, and some of the money we spend on the library doesn't count towards state aid. So we may continue furloughing the employees and take some of that money to buy books or computers for the library, which would keep the money up, which would keep our county's matching participation going, which will allow our state aid fund in 2 years to be the same. That'll work for me. I put that, I think, option 2. Keep the Wakulla County Public Library on the current furlough schedule, but reallocate furlough money or other monies, I'll say, to be spent on materials to keep matching funds coming to Wakulla at the same levels.
I can support that. I can support that.
I can support that.
Now,
I've seconded for discussion. Will you change your motion to the second one, and then I'll second that?
Yeah, I'll change my motion to the second one. Keep the Wakulla County Public Library in the current furlough schedule, but reallocate library impact funds money to be spent on materials to keep matching funds coming to Wakulla at the same levels.
Second.
Now, let me add. I have been working daily with this gentleman over here about furloughs, and we have talked in length about. I mean, we're tying his hands. Randy alluded to this a while ago. We're tying his hands when we keep pulling the strings back and saying, you know, he's got a tough job trying to make the ends meet. I'm not going to get to the end of September and say, oh my God, I wish we'd have done another furlough day. But we're looking at the picture is getting better and better, much better. So he thinks now, and he'll know by the end of this week. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth here, Tim, but tell me if I'm wrong, is that we'll hopefully by the end of this week know that we can cut back to only one furlough day of pay period. That's much better. And hopefully then we'll be able to cut furloughs period in the month of September. So when we get to the end of August and we can then, because it's hard to look more than a month ahead at what's going to take to pay the bills. And once you get to the end of the month, then you can look 30 days ahead. So at the end of August, we should be able to say maybe we won't have to do them all in September. That's my hope. So, but I think we got to like Randy said a while ago, we got to let him make that decision.
Right, and I was going to talk about that secondly.
Okay,
so
let's dispose of this.
Dispose of this, and then we'll go to that conversation.
All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Mr. Brock.
My second issue, I also, and I think probably all 5 of us are going to Tim on a regular basis, day in, day out, saying, what are we going to do about furloughs? I have employees who have expressed concerns. This next paycheck will have a 20% reduction in what our county administrative employees are making. Right now, with the furloughs every Friday through the month of July, August, and September, we're anticipating, and adding in, I just emailed y'all the document, Lindsay's salary, that from her, for the planning director resignation, we're anticipating having $188,000. And we don't have to do it now. If you want to continue to direct Tim in the future, I wanted to have the conversation about reducing our furlough days down to 1 a pay period for next month. That was the conversation I was going to try and give board direction. If you want to continue just to say that it looks positive, because what would happen in my email that I'd sent to Tim, and I've met with the clerk's office, I don't see them in here. I was meeting with them prior to coming over here today. There are concerns. We're anticipating if everything maintains having this money, but there's still the opportunity that something could go wrong. Another, the example they gave that gives them the biggest concern right now is our sewage lift stations continue to break around the county and have to be automatically replaced. That's a bill we have to pay that cuts into that $180,000 that we have. I was going to propose, and I talked to the clerk, and he said propose it, and if it doesn't work, propose it again next month. Reducing down, starting in August, to after this cycle, starting 1 furlough a pay cycle to try and cut back.
I'll reiterate, I think that should be Tim's decision.
I think Tim's going to know this end of this week, and I know that Tim is as anxious as anybody to curtail them.
Well, and this is going to lead into the next conversation, which is with Commissioner Moore, and we all have the figures in front of us. For me, and this is not. I think everyone's anxious. I'm just going to talk.
Let's don't move to his. Let's let him.
I am. Well, I was just going to talk about my priorities as we move forward, and before we get the conversation, you all have the numbers in front of you right now. Reducing furloughs is my number one priority for employees right now, because we haven't reduced and I've said this before, I'm just going to keep reiterating it for the public. We haven't reduced the work we're asking our employees, and our employees haven't done anything wrong, but we're reducing their salary during this time of money crunches and hard times and everybody by 20%, and adding to that the state's 3% increase in FRS payments. So all of our employees are seeing a 23% reduction for the month of July, and if this moves forward, August and September, in their salary that they agreed to work for when we hired them, not anticipating having this happen. And for me, it's a priority to try and at least reduce that down to 13%, where we only have one furlough day a week.
And I think everybody up here wants to see that as much as you do.
Yeah, so I continue to advise Tim to move in that direction, if possible.
Okay. Absolutely. All right, Mr. Moore.
Okay, on my request was to bring David Edwards on as a commissioner prior to October 1st, but as administrator. I was going to have him replace you, Ms. Arts.
Come on up, David.
As administrator. But after talking with David, David suggested that I don't do this because he doesn't want to come on and cost anybody another off day.
That's exactly what I was going to suggest. I think that's where Alan was going.
This is, Alan, I appreciate you not going there first. But David told me he did not want to come on and cause any employee to have an extra day of furlough. So I respect you for that decision, David, and I will withdraw my request.
Thank you. And thank you, David, for doing that. Go ahead to number B. Letter B.
Okay, now, letter B is we describe it as an outhouse on Levy Bay Road. It has other names, but it's an eyesore. It doesn't work. The door is so high that you don't really want to go in there. It's vandalized all the time. I have a request from the Panacea waterfronts that we remove it. And if you haven't been down Levy Bay Road, you're driving down a very nice road with a great view of our estuaries and our bay and so forth, and you're looking straight in an outhouse, and that's calling it by a better name than I would like to call it. I have another name for it, but I can't use that name. But
face block, though.
It's
so your motion is to
my motion is to tear it down and get it out of there.
Okay, hold on. We got a motion. Do we hear a second to demolish it?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Mr. Brock.
My first concern, and I don't know, I know this isn't the one, when we were out at the groundbreaking, there's another, that's a different one.
That's a different
this is
and that one I know is paid for by grant money and needs to be improved versus demolished. I don't know if this one's in a similar situation where it's paid for by grant money, so it needs to stay, or if we paid for it out of county dollars. Paid for it out of county dollars are the nods I'm getting. I just don't want to make sure that we're going to go back on anything that we need to do to make it legal.
Mr. Gray is motioning that it was paid for out of county money.
Is it something? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lynn.
Okay, I would like to have Mr. Gray or Pam or someone who's knowledgeable about the history on this. Okay, all right. Well, first I want to understand a little more. It was my understanding that this was put in there because there was a problem that preceded it. And so I want to get clarification on that, and then I want to know how much this thing cost, and how much is it going to cost to get rid of it, and is whatever problem it was put there to address, is what, if anything's going to be done about that. So take it away.
Okay. The bathroom was first constructed because it was like Christmas out there with all the toilet paper strung through all the reeds, because people were using it as restroom. right out in the woods. So you had the feces going directly back in the bay in the water. It's a heavily used boat ramp by our local users. Bathroom was built. When it was built, because of the nature and what we didn't want to do was worry about trying to put a sewer line in, which would have been extremely expensive. It is a self-contained facility. So, and then what I'm getting to is your next question about how much it's going to cost to demolish it. Okay, it's about 10.5 inches thick concrete, goes down 8 feet into the ground. It's a completely sealed tank. Okay, so that no water gets in, nothing but the feces. It operates, it's self-contained. You empty it out every 3 years. Okay, so once we do take it out, we're going to be very careful about what we do there. I'm sure the health department's going to be there. Anyone else for anything that is in the facility itself. It cost right at $5,000 to build the facility originally. So it's the purpose it served was just that, was just to keep people from going in the woods and going right there in the grass at the reed, at the boat ramp, on the boat ramp. Just, I mean, it's middle of the night.
Now, is it usable now or not? It's
usable. I mean, it's just, I don't know that I'd run down there and use it, but I'll put it that way.
You got to go to the bathroom.
The reason being is,
and they're going to go somewhere.
The reason, and the only thing I say different is there was I brought the pictures of it now, look much a lot closer. Okay, the facility is a well-built facility. Okay, but there are some things that are needed there. You'd have to put a partition in front, which there was a partition there. Last time it looked like about a 12 gauge, about 8 shots. We had to remove that. So it blocked the door. Otherwise, the commissioner made a good point. You're sitting there on the doing your business, and everybody else knows it too. So,
is there any other location for it? I mean, it is unattractive. I agree.
Unattractive is a very nice word.
It blocks the scenic view. I appreciate that, but I'm just wondering if there are other alternatives, and I still haven't heard the price estimate for taking this down.
Yeah, I would first get with Mr. Fleming, because we're going to hound them one more time with their equipment to take it out. And make up for all that work he didn't do at the Equestrian Center. We can get up the difference there.
I'm going to withdraw my second. I think we can do something with this one to make it look better. And I know the boat ramp at Mash's Sands gets used a lot, especially people fixing to go out on fishing trips and stuff like that. So, and if we can fix it up some, I know I've spoken to Cherie about this bathroom before. I'm sure she doesn't want to get up here and talk, but
I think their concern is that it's an unsightly eyesore, and if we make it look nice and take care of it, they would probably be not necessarily proud of it, but accepting of it anyway.
Well, and I would like to sort of discuss briefly, if it's going to cost $500 to tear it down, if we spend $500 to make it better, and this keeps the people from defecating on the beach, I think that's a well spent money.
This is the origin of that common herd saying, "It's as strong as a brick blank house." There it is, right there. A brick house.
I think
it's literally.
We're sensitive to what you're saying, Jerry, but I think you brought it to where we need to make it look better and take better care of it.
It'll never look better.
But could I make a suggestion?
It's an eyesore in the middle of a cul-de-sac.
But but what are you going to do as let's say we do take it down. What do you?
I'd rather see tissue than see that toilet.
Well, no. I don't know that you've ever seen tissue.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion?
How about? Well, no.
Well, we had a porta potty there before, and they shot that every week with shotguns, and
easy to flip over too.
And drag down the road.
But what do you suggest we do?
First of all, if Panacea Waterfronts is the one that brought the attention, I'd like to go back and let them give us a suggestion if it can be more sightly improved on, or some suggestions from them in a manner in which we could do.
Maybe some
landscaping. Or whatever, landscaping, whatever. This is an area they live with. They live right there. So they're very conscious of it. So at the same time, I agree it's unsightly, but at the time, the only resolve we had was to come up with a facility.
Surely we could have put that.
It is going to be expensive to remove, and the only reason I say that is because all those blocks, it's the 18-inch blocks, they're all poured, and the steel's tied all the way down to 8 feet below the ground, because that was the only way the health department would accept the facility. This is a big concrete block, and it goes into the ground. But removing it, if that's what y'all want, we can do that.
And I don't think we're going to remove it. I think we've gotten some direction from our board to try and figure out ways. And I don't know if you need an official motion to do this to make it more attractive. I think working with the Panacea Waterfronts to come up with that solution is a good suggestion. But I think whatever we do needs to at least wait till next fiscal year. Make it through the summer in its current condition. Wait till October to make any
Sure, he
changes.
could get some input on how to make it look better.
So, some nice little bushes around the side to help keep people away from graffiti in the walls.
Making a mural. The high school put a mural on it.
Well, we got something very similar to this at the Mashes Sands Park at the beach. You know, it's not even split-face block. It's just regular block. It's got some pictures of turtles and stuff like that. But anyway, I sympathize, but I think it needs to be there, to be honest with you.
If they had just put it in some other position instead of the middle of a cul-de-sac.
Well, that was really the only place to put it. If I remember when Mike built that, not you, years ago, and I think that was the only place to put it.
It was a 75-foot setback the health department required, and even if we'd have moved back up the road, we still wouldn't have been able to. So it was kind of the only location it could go, and that was a big problem too. It was brought up at that time, Commissioners. Very good point.
The man that built it solid.
Okay. Luther Council, so there's no motion on the floor now. Luther, you have anything to say to this? No? So we'll move ahead with that. Progress. Okay.
Jerry, that can be your
Commissioner Artis.
Okay, I have two items. The first, Ron Piasecki, the president of the Friends of Wakulla Springs State Park, eloquently described recent events concerning the proposed campground and the need to slow down, really take a hard look at what the impacts might be and whether we can, what the park could offer that wouldn't be detrimental. So even though there seems to be recognition on the part of DEP and the governor to slow down and reconsider, I would like us to go on the record as a board emphasizing that and making sure that we're involved, that the adequate consideration is given to impacts and that we're involved also in the planning. So I've drafted a resolution, well, with the help of the county attorney, and I make a motion that we approve this resolution and send it to DEP and the governor concerning the campgrounds at Wakulla Springs State Park.
I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution.
I'm with going along with what you said earlier. I think it's a good idea to have a campground there. Maybe not what they're proposing.
What?
Maybe not what they're proposing. Let me be clear on that. But we all sit around here and talk about encouraging ecotourism, and I mean, here it is. People come down to see the springs, and people are opposed to it. So,
and I think everybody I've talked to is open or outright enthusiastic about some type of campground, but just where it's located, how large it is, what type of camping, those kind of details need to be thought through carefully.
I agree, and I don't know would there be any way to put some sort of, I don't want to send out a negative, you know what I mean?
I don't think this does.
Well, not directly, and maybe say while we initially, you know, support the concept, we want you to look at this harder. I don't want whoever the board is to say, well, look, Wakulla County doesn't want this, or they giving us a hard time, forget it. I'd like to see something there, maybe not what they're proposing, but I would just ask that we tentatively or tentatively, whatever, accept the concept of a campground, but we want you to do this, this, and this.
Could we do that in the cover letter, maybe?
I would like
to see it
to.
in statement one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Randy, just going on what you're saying is that I want to make sure whatever board it is that makes recommendations to the state I don't want to put my name on anything until it comes through here, and let me take a look at what your recommendations are going to be going to the state.
And that's requested in here, that there be input from the local government and citizens.
And before that is sent to the state.
Okay, Alan, what do you have?
Sorry, it's I wanted to state that I think this is a good resolution. My main concern about the way things are moving forward, because I also think that there's a great potential at Cherokee Sink for what they're talking about doing, is the fact they're trying to move this forward. And I think the original timeline's under 3 months, without any other further studies of what could happen. I think this would slow it down, probably about reading over it, probably make it a year project, but that way we better understand all of the impacts of what's being proposed.
Did you read the study they've already done? Management plan amendment?
I went to the workshop where they discussed it.
Okay.
I went to the first workshop at the Livestock Pavilion where it was discussed, and I heard some of the ideas. They were unclear on some of the things. There were studies that they were still trying to figure out. At that workshop, they expressed that they were trying to move forward at the governor's direction to try, and we're one of the first ones they're doing. We all agree that Wakulla Springs is a treasure of Wakulla County, and I think it's awesome that we may be one of the first ones that they move forward with this, but I don't want to hurt Wakulla Springs in that process. So taking our time to figure out the best way to utilize Cherokee Sink and the property around it makes sense to me. And I appreciate Lynn bringing this up.
And I do too. Would you be adverse, Ms. Arch, to putting some sort of statement in there that we're not opposed to the concept of having a campground, but we just want you to look at it more?
We could start the first line of the resolution. Wakulla County is not opposed. This resolution does not mean that Wakulla County is opposed to the proposal, but the board hereby respectfully requests, and go from there. Would be my suggestion. Or it doesn't.
If that's all right with you, Ms. Arch.
That's fine with me.
That would satisfy me. I don't want to scare off and say, look at these, they don't want this. And, I want it, personally. Maybe not with that scale, but...
Yeah, I don't think we're going to scare them off, but...
Some form of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I want to make sure it's going to be...
We don't want a gas station over there. We don't want a drag strip over there.
Actually, what we want is the input of the board, whatever goes forward. This is basically a resolution saying that... but anyway, we want to be able to review whatever the Wakulla Springs board...
I think that's exactly what Ms. Arch has said in here.
Yeah, it includes review of local representatives, but, so, I'm fine with amending it. Do you feel like you understand what the wording's, okay. And then I don't need to bring it back, do I? We can just make those changes and authorize the chairman to sign it as amended? Okay.
So, we have a motion and a second. Chuck Hess, you wanted to say some things about this?
Yes, I would. This is the same agency that wanted to put golf courses on our state parks. And so I would be real hesitant to any ideas that they come forward with because to promote activities and not take care of their landscape. So make sure you get a good environmental impact statement or some type of biological evaluation. The impact of whatever project they propose to put on this site. Thank you.
Jenny Brock?
Jenny Brock, 311 Old Magnolia Road. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to say to the board that since he couldn't be here, he's asked me to come and tell you Manley Fuller from the Florida Wildlife Federation wants you to know that he supports this ordinance.
Thank you.
Resolution. Okay. John Shuff?
Yeah, just speaking for the chamber, I want to support what Randy just said. We think it's a real good idea. People that go camping there, they're going to be hiring green guides. They're going to be riding in our captain's boats. So yeah, we need to, respect what Ron's concerned about. Where's Ron? For sure, but a good positive sentence in what we send back to the state would be I think be very helpful.
Okay. Ron Pasecki?
Yeah, just briefly again, I thank Commissioner Arts for bringing this forward and the board's comments. The Friends of Wakulla Springs are what's called a CSO, Citizen Support Organization. We're chartered by DEP, but our major goal is to support the park. And we are working very close with the park management to look at this whole proposal. A lot of parks do have camping. Whether or not we end up supporting it's going to be depending upon some of the studies. We are very concerned about capacity. We're concerned about the equestrian thing, and we're concerned again about the location. We'd prefer, some of us, to see it maybe south of Cherokee Sink with an entrance off Shadeville versus right now directly across from the west entrance to the park. But I've been assured again by the director of the Park Service, and I'm meeting with him again on Friday, that they want to work hand in glove with the Friends Group and local communities. So I have to take that assurance to mean that, yes, I think this would help. It's obviously, you saw what happened down south when the political interests were known to the governor, and I think anything coming from a political body, of the governing body of the county, to say, we're not saying no, but we want to work with you and we want to see what the impacts are. So appreciate your support on this. Thank you.
I also want to add that one more note, going along with our earlier conversation. This would also be another source for bed tax in Wakulla County. Is when people go camping, they pay a bed tax. So maybe they're paying to camp. So yeah, that's one more thing that we can do to help Wakulla.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then the item that I wanted to add on, let me just pass that down quickly. I put this item on. It's a request to hold a workshop so we can have an exchange of information, a discussion, expressions of concern and whatever related to the Tourist Development Council and the increase in the bed tax. I think I've been receiving many emails, and a lot of people they find the whole structure, like there's really not a good understanding among the public, I think, of the Tourist Development Council and who they report to and what their plans are and who the members are and how they get appointed to that body and so forth. And I think this would be a way to provide information to the public about that organization. Also, I know they've done a lot of work on developing marketing strategies and activities and have plans, and I know that they invite people to come to their meetings, but not everybody maybe can attend during the day. This would be an evening workshop. And some of the questions people are asking about how is the money used and what are the plans for the revenue increase or whatever. And I brought this forward rather than pull the consent item, as a number of people were asking me to, because I think that a workshop would be a better forum for a good information exchange and discussion than just pulling an item and having a couple people come up and make comments that aren't answered and so forth. And I originally proposed this. I've talked to Pam about it. She's very open. She really wants to provide information. And I had suggested doing it on August 4th after the budget workshop, which, because of some of these are budget-related concerns. But we're now up to, this would be our fourth on August the 4th. So I guess
30 minutes apiece. I don't care. We go all night.
Well, anyway, I'm
fine with that. There's been some ugly stuff sent around that really bothers me about all this TDC stuff. I'm almost going to be, I can't help it, I'm going to be open and honest and transparent and tell you that I'm frustrated with all the garbage that's been spread about the TDC. They meet, they're publicized, their meetings are open to the public. Anybody is welcome to go and ask questions at those meetings, and they encourage that. And there's no reason why the folks who are complaining the loudest can't go get the information they need. There's no reason, Lynn, and you know that, and I appreciate what you're doing. I'm not it's not an attack on you. It's not an attack. It's just I'm frustrated because we were errantly included on an email, and that's bothersome to me when people are quietly going about trying to demise something that I think is very good already, and they can go to those meetings. They're public meetings. They're not holding them in secret, and they're well advertised. Go to them and complain there to the people who make the decisions. That's what I suggest you do.
I know that Commissioner Arts, because there was an accident. Commissioner Arts forwarded an email to a staff member who forwarded it on to all of us accidentally that showed us a lot of the correspondences that she's received. She's received in far excess the number of emails that I've received. And I get the impression, because some of the emails that I'm receiving are addressed to Commissioner Arts and I alone, that I'm probably receiving more than some of our other members. So other people may not be perceiving the need of the community or the community frustration with what's going on. There's also been letters to the editor in the Wakulla News. Our tourist development, and I represent Wakulla County on the Tourist Development Council, and I'm very proud to do that. I think our TDC is doing great things in Wakulla County. They brought in over $100,000 in grant money this year. I think over $150,000 in grant money this last year. 100, okay. I misspoke to someone earlier when I said 150. It was over $100,000 in grant money this last year. Money that's been spent to help bring people to Wakulla County and spend money in Wakulla County and help improve our Wakulla County economy. The Tourist Development Council are the people who've asked for the raise, not our TDC, not a raise, I use to raise the tourist development tax, to raise the bed tax. The TDC, unanimously made up of city commissioners from Sopchoppy, St. Marks, myself from Wakulla County, community people involved in tourism, and then people who are involved in hotels for a 9-member board, have unanimously supported bringing forward to the Wakulla County Commission a resolution that we've approved to move forward and consider raising the bed tax. Tonight, on the consent agenda, we scheduled a public hearing to bring forward we move forward with scheduling a public hearing where every citizen who wants to talk will have the opportunity to speak and voice their concerns about the Tourism Development Council if they have any. The TDC meets monthly, and everyone's invited to come and speak. We welcome input, and we invite people to come and talk. I'm afraid I'm talking too long, so people aren't going to pay attention. The other thing, and why I'm not going to support this workshop, because I normally do support workshops. I do my best to support the workshops when people bring them up, because I've brought up unpopular workshops, is that the TDC does a roundtable twice a year for this very purpose, in addition to their meetings that they do monthly. Those roundtables are well advertised and invite people, and are in the evening, so people have the opportunity from the community, and are well attended. I came to the one here a few months ago, and we had probably 35 people in the room who came and voiced their concerns that were then taken, brought back to the TDC, and we implemented some of the ideas that were suggested. We have a system that is working, and an additional workshop isn't needed right now, I don't think, because I think the roundtables cover that in a generally good way.
But see, I think some of what you've just talked about is what's not understood, that some of these proposals that are coming to the board are not coming from the TDC director, they're coming from the Tourist Development Council.
Well, and what I want to say, because I also get slightly offended when people say that they aren't getting the chance to be heard. People who have emailed me and raised these concerns to me, I have emailed back everything I have just said. Their voice has been expressed to me, and I have brought it back to them and said, here is an answer to the concern you have raised. It's not that we're ignoring people, not replying to people. Everything I've said has been stated to them, the people who've raised these concerns, in particular Ms. Gail Hickman, and I also have copied Mr. Hugh Taylor. Those are the people who I've reached out to. I reached out to Hugh because I saw that he had emailed you in that train that we accidentally got sent. There have been people, and I said this in my email, there have been people who don't think we should have paid staff running our Tourist Development Council. Our TDC discussed that at our last meeting, reiterated the fact that in the past we've tried to have volunteers run it, and we said that's not a good idea. Many of the people who spoke out today saying that they didn't have the chance to be publicly heard were at that meeting where they had the opportunity to speak and heard that conversation take place. It was a great meeting. We had probably an extra 10 to 15 extra people who had never attended one of our tourist and development, well, the Hickmans had attended once before, one of our TDC meetings, there to hear everything. They got their voices heard. We let them speak. They expressed their concerns. They provided input on how they think we should be spending our money. it's...
Making a second?
Oh, I'm not going to second. I'm just ranting, and I apologize. But I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated with the way this is being spun in the public right now.
Well, I understand the frustration, and that was my reason for wanting to have the workshop, because I thought that would be an opportunity to actually have a productive discussion and try and really work through some of these issues.
Are there issues to work through, I guess is my root question.
Well, in some cases...
Alan made the statement, people are frustrated with what's going on. What's going on? I don't think anything's going on. I think they're doing their job.
There you go.
Well, I think in some cases it's misunderstanding, it's inaccurate, it's either lack of information or it's...
But they can get that information, Lynn. Like Alan...
Maybe we could update the county website. I don't know if TDC has whatever.
Yeah, check out visitwakulla.com, the TDC's website. I don't think there's a second.
There's no second.
I thought there was. Okay, there's... Okay.
No second.
So no second.
And it's not. And Lynn, I want to reiterate, I'm not seconding this because I normally would
I
second.
think I'm the only person who ever has workshops not approved. I know this is at least my second. Who else has had one not approved?
I've had workshops not approved. I could promise you, which is why I try to second them to avoid that in the future. But we have roundtables twice a year to have this very conversation already. And all of our county commissioners, if you want, at our next roundtable to make it where we have the clerk take minutes and we all attend, if that's something to do, we can maybe talk about that and have Pam bring it up when it comes up. But I don't even think that's necessary. But I'm just saying that would be the more preferred way for me.
Okay. Is that all your items?
I'm finished, thank you.
Thank you. County Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item, the contract with Neighbors Giblin and Nickerson, our firm, expires September 30th of this year, and we're seeking an extension.
Move to approve the 3-year extension of the agreement for county attorney services.
Second.
We had one citizen ask to make sure our county attorney, they made an issue, they thought a county attorney should live in Wakulla County. I just wanted to make the statement that in my lifetime, the county attorney has never lived in Wakulla County.
You're a young man, though.
I am a young man, but I'm just saying, for over 30 years, the county attorney hasn't lived in Wakulla County. I think it's a good suggestion for maybe I think we're getting great service right now.
I spoke to Heather about this too, and my concern was that if we're not happy with her, and the way I put it is, if she left and they put some jerk down here, could we get rid of her firm? And the answer is yes. If the board, correct me if I'm wrong, if we decide that it's a critical issue, we could fire your group tomorrow.
If you guys don't want us here, we don't want to be here. We want to make sure you get the best representation you can. As the contract currently is written,
Why don't we make that part of the motion that she has to stay?
Well, I can't do that.
I think it's probably actually in the contract.
I think the contract says it's like ESGs.
I understand.
Saying it's 3 years really is a moot point. It's really day to day. If tomorrow, politics change or we don't like Heather for whatever reason, we can fire her.
There's a get out.
If it was a firm thing, I wouldn't support it till David was here, even though she doesn't work. They're all going to work together, but I don't have a problem with it.
I think you've been doing an outstanding job, and so has Greg. I think this is one of the best things that's happened to our county, so absolutely extend it.
Do you have to have an education to be an attorney?
That's required.
I'm glad you weren't on the board when we were looking for our legal firm.
10 years experience doesn't get it.
I could serve if I quit.
10 years experience as an attorney.
You used to have a degree. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, without college.
All right.
The 1800s were awesome.
Yeah.
Luther Council, any comments on this?
So basically, we're talking about you're here at will, more or less. We have a 3-year contract. That's what this will be. But you're also saying you're here
And
at the
it's
will.
always been that way.
Okay.
Luther?
Again, Luther Council, 1242 Wakulla Aaron Road. Just real quick clarification. It wasn't the outhouse I wanted to talk about. It was the other part. But moving on. I'd really like to see the county start working towards an in-house employee-type attorney with their own legal department. And just throwing it out there, I think it should be so.
Okay. Ron Pasecki?
Commissioner Moore, I'm not sure you have to have a law degree, but I know you have to pass the bar. Is it
You do have to have a law degree to take the bar.
Abraham Lincoln could never do it, I guess. As chairman of the Code Enforcement Board, we've worked very, very closely with Heather and Bethany, and it's been light years difference in all the changes we've made, and I feel very comfortable, and I think all the board does, that our process, our procedures, and everything else is very good. And being a quasi-judicial type of organization, we've got to have that strong feeling. So I just say, they've done a great job, and I encourage you to support them. Thank you.
Okay. Bob Danzy.
Hi, Bob Danzy, and I live in at 9 Springview. Heather, don't be mad at me. Let me apologize in advance. I have the opinion that we reevaluate you all every 4 years. Miss Arts, you're forever wanting to look at this and look at that and do a study, and for you to be the first one to jump up and say, yeah, let's keep them.
Because we've
Things have changed in the last 3 years. The economy has changed. People will work cheaper. You go get a house built. You get your bids for getting a road paved. If you go and you ask for people's best offer, and you look at all of your, if you ask for different people to come forward, they will. And I believe in competition. I believe that America was built on competition. I don't have a problem with Heather. I like Heather, actually. Me and her are quite cordial. So it's nothing personal. It's a business decision that if you all don't look at this again, then you're cheating us, because you can get work done cheaper today than you could 3 years ago. Thank you.
We'll hire you, Bob.
I could do it. That might not be right, but I could do it.
That's what I was thinking. Anyway, all right. So we have a motion and a second to extend it by 3 years. Any more discussion?
I'd like to say that Bob's point is well taken to me, and maybe if Davey gets in there, if he feels like we need to just see what's out there. No offense.
I just want to clarify, just so we're all on the same page. The county attorney doesn't report to the county administrator.
But y'all will be working closely together. Obviously, I'll sit next to each other right now.
It might.
It's not his decision.
I know.
That's our decision.
I know.
Okay.
It might be helpful also, maybe for Randy and Jerry, if they're interested, to look at when we did the evaluation, when we did the RFQ for legal services, and to look through the respondents and how they were evaluated. And this is a decision, unlike a lot of others, you don't make on the basis of price necessarily. It's more, it's so. But you might want to look at what that process was like.
I reviewed the contract. I don't think we're getting a bad deal for the money we're spending.
They gave us back a month of fees this year, which equates to over $10,000. They cut their contract, and we negotiated some fees that they had charged or were going to charge for legal that they didn't charge us. So, I think they've stepped up to the plate this fiscal year. I hear what you're saying.
And I do. I just want to add a couple of accolades. I had a friend of mine who's a city commissioner down in Hollandale Beach call me up, and apparently one of your other partners has applied to be their city attorney down there. And he was asking me my opinion on y'all, and I was explaining things. One of the key examples I held up for how they've helped Wakulla, because what Neighbors Giblin has that a lot of other firms don't have is they represent cities and counties. I think they've represented every county in Florida for some aspect or something. So they have a lot of insight that they can bring and ideas of how things are done in other communities that help us do things more efficiently here in Wakulla. A key example of that, one that I know is near and dear to my heart, is that through Neighbors Giblin and their attorneys working with the North Florida Broadband Authority, we've been added into the North Florida Broadband Authority's efforts, and we're getting broadband expansion in Wakulla County so that we'll all have access to the internet throughout the whole county, which will then allow opportunities for jobs in Wakulla County, because right now there's only certain aspects of our community where they can build and have high-tech jobs, and now when this is done, you can have them throughout the whole community. And I think that's well, the expansion's free. You'll still end up paying for services, but in the same way, I'm just saying in the same way that in the past to get sewer, the reason we don't have sewer in Wakulla Gardens is we can't afford to expand it to Wakulla Gardens. The reason we couldn't have internet out in Smith Creek was because we couldn't afford to expand it out to Smith Creek. And now the people in Smith Creek might learn how to use computers because, and I bet you, they probably hear, I'm going to get yelled at because I can't hear what you say because you lean back and make jokes, and I repeat them.
That's his people.
But now, they may not have, if you're making the joke that they didn't know how to use computers, they may not have known how to use computers because they didn't have the access, and now they have the access, so now they'll know, and now they can work from home and provide those services, or they will be able to soon, be able to do those things from home. And that's directly related to our county attorney, helping the people of Wakulla County.
Randy's from Smith Creek. What else can you say?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to just dovetail onto what Commissioner Arch is talking about. I know from my perspective in this chair that Heather's firm has been an invaluable asset as far as the depth of knowledge that they all have. Greg, Carly, Bethany, Heather herself. I mean, there's not an issue we've come across that they haven't dealt with at some other organization or county or city in the state before. So I think it's, from my perspective in this chair, and I think my successor will find the same thing, that she's an invaluable tool for making my job a lot easier. So I just want to put that in there as well.
Okay. I think we all agree that you're doing a good job.
Yes.
All right, so all for the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is just an informational item that the board had requested. It was either at one of the last board meetings or a budget workshop. I can't, off the top of my head, remember, but you had asked for some additional information on, now that you're in a RASIC, on the tax assessment that is an option to RASIC counties to fund EMS. This merely gives you that information. At that later, Commissioner Merritt had asked for some additional information also about the optional sales tax. I didn't put that in here because this was done before you asked for that, but we can talk about that now if you'd like, or I can just send you all a memo. The sales tax that is available to fund fire and EMS services. We can talk about that now, or I can just send you each a memo on it.
Send a memo.
This is just informational, no action needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't have any other items.
All right. Discussion issues by commissioners. We'll start down here with Ms.
What
Arch.
about the county
We have county
administrator add-on?
administrator.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was cutting you out, Tim. Thank you.
That's all right. I can go last.
I'm sorry, number 33.
We already took care of Mr. Withers. This is the add-on one regarding the building official.
All right.
Commissioners, sorry about the late add-on, but, we're a dynamic organization and things keep rolling that don't meet the agenda deadline, so I apologize. But as you're all well aware, I sent you an email earlier, our building official, Frank Baxter, has resigned. He's going to be moving on to greener pastures, hopefully for him. And so, once again, we are left without a building official. Per law, we cannot not have a building official. So, but since the time of writing this agenda item, some things have changed. I'm not recommending we move forward with going with Frank Baxter as the interim building official. I've reached out to Leon County. Ed Jarrell is here from Leon County. He's the building official up there. He was filled in the last time we had a vacancy in the building official department to help us stay on track and not hold up any of the building department functions. As I said, I reached out to Leon County today to see if we can negotiate either renewing the interlocal agreement we had previously for a short-term agreement, hopefully not more than a month. We're looking to move up within our ranks. Rod Revel has shown interest in becoming the building official. I recommend that we officially hire him tonight. He can apply to DPPR for his license, and then once that's all through, we won't need the Leon County interlocal agreement.
Would you like a motion to agree to your decision to hire Rod Revel as the building official and authorize you to contract with Leon County to provide interim building services?
Yes.
That's the motion.
Second.
Motion and a second to do so.
Can I ask Ed, do you mind if I ask you a
Ed,
question?
can you
I'm
come up
sorry?
here, please, sir?
I guess this is the only chance we can do it. My question earlier to Tim was, I know before you were here like one day a week, if a person brings in a set of plans on Monday and there's some issue that only you can resolve, is it possible that person can drive up to your office in Leon County and bring it to you, or would you rather only conduct those sort of affairs down here when you're here?
My preference, Commissioner, would be to make a visit here to Leon County, or to Wakulla County. I would like to keep, if the board approves tonight, to go ahead and enter into the interlocal agreement. I would prefer to keep Leon County's business and Wakulla County's business separate, i.e. two separate offices.
That's fine.
I think that's appropriate too.
In case somebody asks, at least I can say
agree.
that.
I agree. Okay. Any more questions for Mr. Gerald?
I don't.
Okay, we're going to vote here. Is that all the direction you need?
Well, I just wanted to let the board know I talked to Mr. Edwards and he's in agreement with the new hire, so I'm not doing anything in a vacuum. But I think we'll be able to cut a position as well. So I just wanted to highlight that we'll be able to eliminate a position by Rod moving up into a vacancy. So.
Did you need my motion to say to approve an interlocal agreement, or just did what I say suffice?
You said authorized contract and interlocal.
Okay.
And I think, going on the record, I think Rod, he's done a good service to the county for many years. I think he'd be an excellent choice, and we look forward to, Rod, you getting your official certification and serving in that capacity. I think that's a wonderful opportunity for you. I mean, you started from the lowest level, I believe, and worked your way up through the ranks, and you certainly deserve the opportunity to serve as that. One citizen, Luther Council. Okay. Any more discussion?
I think I'm going to pass out. We finally hired somebody within.
And he don't have a college degree, I don't.
And he doesn't have a, hopefully.
I got a degree in School of Hard Knocks. There you go.
That's a very
kind of go to
from the Street University. Yeah, that's a good degree.
All right.
I didn't hear the second.
I think did I second?
We'll just say that.
Second,
Mr. Brock seconded. Okay. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one last thing under my time. Just wanted to remind the board, everybody, hot off the presses, budget's done. It should be on the website fairly shortly for the public. I know we sent it to our web guy. I don't know how long it's going to take to get it up there, but there's also copies at the library, copies at the administration office, if anybody wants to peruse. You'll notice it's a little bit thin this time. We cut out a lot of stuff for the tentative just so we don't have to spend the cost on printing. It'll be a full-size book when we're all done. It's just a lot of departmental stuff we've just decided to eliminate and bring back for the final, because this is tentative. It's still a work in progress. It's yours to do as you will. So just want to
Very good. Okay, now we'll go to discussion issues. Ms. Arts?
No, I've had too much fun already.
Okay. Mr. Moore?
I don't have anything.
I have one thing, and we'll move down this way. The Upper River Bridge. We have got, this has been before so many times now until I'm tired of hearing about it, but we have, the CTSD is going to meet tomorrow. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to ask them to make another recommendation. They've made Humpteen, and we don't have the intestinal fortitude up here to do anything about it. I'm suggesting that we finally draw the line and put fence up on that bridge and close it. There are no other options, because I tried to build a park there, and I couldn't get a supporting vote to do that. That's out the woods.
You got support
you had
from the board.
grant got
It was
rejected.
the community that got riled up.
Okay. In the end, y'all caved in. Caved into the pressure.
No, it was the funding agency that caved in.
Well, we won't do anything. So the board, we got to do something, guys. We have beat this to death, and we've done nothing except erect a sign, and it's not getting. I was over there the other day. There was 100 people there.
Right.
Is that the sign that says no fishing and no drinking?
Yes.
Somebody took the nose off there.
Yes.
They say fishing and drinking?
Yes. It's a mess. And we're going to be sued when something happens.
And I apologize if I don't recall correctly. My recollection of the last conversation we had on Upper Bridge was we applied for a grant, and the grant got rejected because we had negotiated prices beforehand, and that I thought we were going to apply for the grant again. Now, do I not recall correctly?
No.
Because I'm all for a park at Upper Bridge.
There was a grant to do it, and the pressure came on from the public against it, and we caved in and pulled out of it. That's
Well,
what
let's
I
see
remember.
if, let's do it again and see if we cave again.
Well, there's not a grant.
Yeah,
That grant doesn't exist anymore.
I agree with Mike. I mean, I was on the CTST before he was, and that thing has always been an issue with people jumping off the bridge, basically, right?
I'll be glad to bring an item back, and we got to make it, or we can vote, if we can get 5 votes here tonight, to close, we need to do just like we did the bridge down in Sop Choppy. We need to put a stinking fence down both sides of it, so people can't jump off of it, and close it.
Does your goal to close the bridge or to close the parking and the walkway on the bridge?
No, it all needs to be
Because
closed.
you want to get rid of the boat dock there also.
If we're not going to do it right, then we need to get rid of it. It's,
Well, and I think that could hurt things in Wakulla
okay,
County.
here's the problem. I don't know if y'all got the email, but I got an email from Suzanne Barwick. Lives right next door. That's the people who wanted to sell us the piece of land to fix this thing the right way. We didn't do that. Whatever reason we didn't do it, maybe I'm incorrect in my evaluation of that. Bottom line is that now they are they're swimming out, going down to her dock, going across her property, climbing over a 10-foot fence with barbed wire on it to get back over where they started. Drunk people. Okay? No sane person would do that, but folks who are drunk are doing that. And they're jumping off. I had a friend that was down there that, well, in fact, Jessica had the same thing happen where somebody jumped off the bridge. They were scared to death to pull out because people jumping in the boat with them off the bridge, almost. And
Mr. Chairman, I think if you put your fence on the bridge, I don't think you should close off the access to the boat ramp, however bad it may be.
Okay.
But I think if you make your motion to close access to jumping off the bridge, you will eliminate 90% of that because the fun is jumping off the bridge.
Okay.
Well, you can, if you won't even go so far as no swimming in the area, because we already basically banned swimming there, haven't we?
Yes, we have. We put a sign
We
up.
banned swimming in the area and just actually enforcing the swimming ban. Because I want to see people who can still put canoes out there. I want to see people who can still tube from there.
If we close, put the fence where they can't jump off the bridge, then they can still do those things.
Yes.
Right. I think, and I know you don't like it, our tourist development director seems to have an opinion she'd like to express also. Can we call her up to?
Yeah.
Ms. Portwood, could you come up to express any?
Pam was around when we applied for that grant.
Well,
Well, the only thing I wanted to mention on the boat ramp part is that our outfitters, Wilderness Way and TNT, both do the relay thing, I don't know what you call it, but where they take everybody in their van and take them up there to Upper Bridge, and then they let them go down the river and pick them up downriver. And
I'm
it's
all for that.
I'm just saying, I know, I'm just saying on the boat ramp part of it, if you close the boat ramp, that's going to affect what they can do with those.
I took the county attorney and the administrator down there today. We rode down there. There were people there swimming with the car back with their back wheels into the water. Swimming. I guess they were jumping off the back of the car. I mean,
I wouldn't close the ramp. That's just part of
Okay.
county, I guess. But we do need to keep people from jumping off the bridge. I agree. That's always been a problem. Kids are out there drunk, trying to in the road
Yes.
now, trying to jump over the guardrail to get to it. So I agree. I mean,
can somebody make a motion to let's erect a fence? Maybe
I'd like to make a motion that we block off access where you can't jump off the bridge.
now, and do y'all want to ban, and so,
That's it.
because I'm trying to figure out how this is going to come about. Not even talking about the money issues of building a fence, even though I see people indicating that. My concern becomes because you also have people who fish off that bridge, and
You can fish on the other side.
well, they can.
We're right back where we started. I'm
I'm trying to figure it out with you.
That's fine. No, this is where we start to.
Well, we'll quit.
Because we can't agree to put a fence up because they want to fish.
I wanted to have that conversation.
We might get just.
I'm just bringing up the issue about trying to figure it out where we talk about it, because I know I drive back and forth on that bridge going from outside the county over to Crawfordville all on a regular basis, and I often see people jumping off and being crazy. I agree that's a legitimate concern. I also oftentimes see people fishing.
You're not supposed to. It's supposed to be against the law to fish off a bridge.
Okay.
Period. I believe there's a Florida statute. I'm not sure. I don't remember, but
Well, this one has a special walkway on the side of it, which makes it hard. But again,
Okay, I brought it up. I'm doing due diligence, and
I made the motion, so.
The motion is to what?
To block access from people jumping off the bridge. However we need to do it, and, you know, we need to know what it costs, of course, and how we're going to pay for it, maybe next fiscal year, but.
Okay, I think it's going to be a fence.
What I'm going to say,
Is that better than a kid dying out there?
Yes.
so make your motion to have staff bring back a proposal on how to close off the walkway, because I think it's more complicated than we're thinking. Would that be your motion?
Well, I kind of did say that.
Right, well.
Okay, so we have a motion to come back and tell us how to fence. I think it's going to be like down in Sop Choppy. I'll work with you, and we'll figure out a way to do it.
Sure, we can get some costs.
I'll second.
Okay.
I think it's going to be, because the rail's not that high. I think you have people, yeah.
Okay, any more discussion?
Complicated.
All for the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? So everybody's for it? Okay.
Staff to bring something back,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, Mr. Brock, you have anything?
I'm done. I talked about the TC earlier.
One more thing, I just counted, I want just to comment to the people saying that we don't allow people to speak at these meetings. I counted the cards. This equates to 1 hour and 48 minutes of public input. I think that's pretty amazing. You won't find very many counties in this state who allow that much public input, I promise you.
I've got several items. I'll be as brief as I can. I told Miss Arts this earlier, but I listened to the Perspectives show on WFSU TV Thursday, and there were several callers from the county, and I was very impressed with everyone's tone, and there were no negative things. It was about wetlands and septic tanks, too, and it was refreshing to see that everybody was cordial. I mean, there was certainly an opportunity to take some stabs at some people, me included. It wasn't done, and I think it looked good for our county. Number two, I wish this was my idea, but I was meeting with David Edwards the other day, and he just threw out a suggestion that maybe we should think about our wastewater more regionally, and maybe just think about exploring the possibility of sending it to Tallahassee. Since they have an AWT plant, or they're building one, same thing Talcon did. Instead of building a plant, they're sending it to us. We're treating it. Same thing we did at the Sheriff's Department. You know, they had a package plant over there. We took it offline. I'd like to at least begin to talk about it. You know, it may just be flat rate. We build a force main to the wastewater plant, and all we're in the collections business in. That's it, not in the treatment business.
And us build a force main all the way to their plant?
Yes. We could reverse some flows. Takes a little engineering knowledge, but we got plenty of force main pipe up to Crawfordville. And, this is instead of building a new wastewater plant, which is very expensive also.
But we're talking about, we're going to discuss the Fugla.
I know, but I just wanted to throw that out, too.
I'm fine with it.
They may go, I don't know how far they provide sewer down Spring Hill. That'd be the question.
I don't think they do.
Don't go down Spring Hill. To the hockey plant, that's it.
I mean, if it's all right with y'all, I'll talk and see if anybody's even interested.
I know there was a lady that was here that was a city commissioner. She was very interested.
Yeah,
in the city.
she's on the CRTPA with me, so nothing else. That's good for developing a relationship
with her.
Yeah.
I think we need real thorough analysis of what the impacts will be on Wakulla Springs.
And this is just the beginning of talking about the possibility of thinking of talking about it. So, not even doing anything.
Just discussion.
Next, on the wetlands issues, on that Perspective show, I heard a lot of things thrown out here. And what I have here is our existing code and comp plan. And all these things I'm going to tell you are not proposed to be changed. Policy 4.1, no wetlands may be disturbed unless the Board of County Commissioners makes a finding that no reasonable alternative is available to avoid a taking. That's going to stay the same. That's not changing. Let's see. The county shall revise its land development codes, this is in the comp plan, to prohibit development of coastal wetlands or to require mitigation. Mitigation shall be permitted in lieu of preservation only as a last resort to avoid a taking, and only through PUD or special use permitting procedures, giving the board the opportunity to review specific plans. That's in the comp plan. That's staying. That's not even being proposed to be looked at. All right. Also in the comp plan, the things, well, we got to protect the springs. You know, that was a lot of the topic of conversation. Policy 13.1 of our comp plan. These are setbacks. These are buffers, not setbacks, buffers required in our own comp plan. First and second magnitude springs, the buffer is 300 feet, not 75, 300 feet. Nobody wants to change that. Spring runs, which would be Wakulla River, I assume, 150 feet buffer zone, not proposed to change. Smaller springs, 100 feet. Sinkholes with direct connection to the aquifer, 100 feet. More than 75, not being proposed to be changed. Other karst features direct connection to aquifer, 100 feet. So there are lots of provisions in our code that nobody's proposing to change. And I heard a statement said, well, if you change a comp plan, you can build a house 6 inches from a wetland or a beach. Wakulla County Code, Section 6-16, additional setback standards in areas adjacent to bodies of water. No improvement to real property shall be located less than 50 feet from the mean high water line of any body of water. For purposes of subsection, improvements not limited to buildings, swimming pools, street pavements, curb and gutter, street signs, accessory buildings, storage sheds, septic tanks. You can't, if we change the comp plan, even the code says you can't do it. So that's a misnomer. That our own code says you can't be closer than 50 feet. And I had brought up at the workshop that I believe our comp plan had changed during the last year as related to wetlands, and I got on municode.com. Anybody can get this off the computer, because a statement was made, Ms. Arts, I believe you had made it, that we've had this rule, setback rule in place since 1990. Okay, which is pretty much correct, but let me read the comp plan as it reads before the year, which I assume is on municode because I haven't updated it yet. All right. Mentions the buffer. I think everybody mentions 75 foot, 35 foot no development, second 40 foot. All right. The buffer shall be maintained around active sinkholes, parentheses, a hollow in a lime rock region that communicates with a cavern or passage to the aquifer, but excluding shallow depressions, swampy areas, or similar low-lying depressions. End of parentheses.
Septic tank setback?
No, this is the buffer.
Septic tank setback. I mean,
this is the buffer we're developing.
Sinkhole buffer.
No,
That's the wetlands buffer.
This is the wetlands buffer our whole wetlands ordinance is based on. Then it goes on, comma, wetlands, beaches, dunes, natural freshwater, because it kind of contradicts itself. Here it says, don't worry about swampy areas, and then the next sentence it says wetlands, which to me a swampy area is a wetland. But so maybe somebody was trying to clean some language up, but it seems to me the intention was excluding shallow depressions, swampy areas, or similar low-lying. Almost sounds to me like isolated wetlands, you know. But anyway, so I just want to let the public know we have lots of protections for our springs, our wetlands. Obviously, they're very important to everybody, and nobody's wanting to get rid of that. Just want to get rid of some overlapping layers of government. That's. Oh, I'm not done.
Well, okay. Well, just while we're on discussion, I want to discuss briefly. When you're done, I'll discuss with you.
Okay. Well, I got another item.
Well, I just wanted to. The other point I was going to make was the same point you just made, that we've had the 75-foot buffer in our comp plan since 1995. Most of the growth that has happened in Wakulla County has been post-1995. So the 75-foot buffer hasn't stopped growth in Wakulla County. That was going to be one of the things to think about while we're doing this. I want to reiterate, and this is going to be my argument, because I've stated again, I don't support this comp plan change. I think that it protects Wakulla County, that we've had it in our comp plan for so long, and I think changing it puts our community at risk for the future, especially if we decide to ever go back and implement it again. But if there's a variance or an exception or something that you want to specifically pursue, we can go into details with that with the ordinance. And that would be the place to make changes as you saw fit. Leaving it in the comp plan protects Wakulla County. And that's the conversation I've said again and again. I just want to reiterate
All
it.
want to protect Wakulla County, even me.
And I know you do. So, before you get to your last item, because I did remember one discussion item that I forgot, and it's related to you, so I'm going to discussion back and forth. You had talked about, someone asked me this last week, and I said I'd bring it up now, perhaps bringing back impact fees as you thought they were due. And I'm not sure if you finished looking into them, if you have any thoughts.
No, I haven't finished.
And I just wanted to bring that back up to you. It's something that people are still talking about. I said, and that you were going to bring them back. I said, well, I don't know. I'll remind him and just see where he is on time.
Heather, under sunshine law, can I give Alan what I've done so far?
I don't know what you've done so far,
A citizen's made a public records request on it. It's just calculations and stuff like that. I wouldn't think so, but I don't know.
If you've got stuff coming together, you can list it as a discussion item on our next agenda, not even an actual item, just so we can look at it and maybe discuss at the end of our next meeting, just some of your thoughts. And that could be a step towards the next step, if you want to do that. Because we had talked about, if you all recall, at our general planning meeting for the year, when we talked about priorities, we talked about using these times at our end of our meeting for an hour of discussion on what's going on in Wakulla County. We haven't really done that. But if you want to, we can always, it's been approved for the year. If you want to bring something up, you could put your notes in as a discussion item, something we won't vote on, but just to discuss. That might be a good idea.
We can do that now.
We don't have them with me. Well, yeah,
I'm
we
just
have
saying, I mean, it's bringing stuff.
Yes, I am working on it. Yeah. A lot of things, I don't know if you know how, I think I've explained a couple of times how the impact fee study was done, but a lot of things have changed as far as how many vehicles does the sheriff's department have, which one, trying to delineate which ones are used for law enforcement, what should the credits be, what's the interest rate, all that stuff affects it greatly. Whatever your discount rate, Jerry, you know what that is. Whatever that is greatly affects what the number should be.
I was just bringing it up because a citizen had asked, and I said that you were bringing it back, but I didn't know when.
In the future. I got a call from the guy running St. Mark's Powder. I don't know if y'all did or not.
Yes.
That's a pretty significant tax increase. But hold on. I'd like to have Tim look and see, in their case, what their power bill is. If they were Talcon, I could get it quick, but they're Progress Energy, so...
told me it spent $4 million on power and gas.
He said the impact would be $425,000.
Well, and the reason I'm saying this is that we estimated the additional revenue at about $1 million, right?
A little over $1.1 million.
And if this one business is doing 400,000 of it, I want to be sure we're operating on the right numbers. I don't want to hurt jobs, Jerry. I don't want to plagiarize you, but we want more jobs. So if we can somehow exclude, not maybe exclude, but put a limit on industrial and still raise the same amount of revenue, I just want to re-verify the figures.
We've talked about we're going to bring this public services tax back before the board. And I'm going to St. Mark's Powder next week to tour and see everything and look at how it works and meet with them. Two of the things that go into this is they do have a little over $4 million a year utility bill, so a 10% tax on that's $400,000. Half of that's utility, half of that is gas. Gas is not currently in our estimate for that $1 million figure. So that's all gonna, that's correct? Gas, yeah, so that's gonna be an additional.
Well, my point is we don't want to affect people's jobs.
We have the ability, and this is a good conversation, having it now is good so the citizens are talking about it so we can get some input. We have the ability to exclude agriculture, different types of agriculture products. We're not discussing that right now, and in particular specific industrial types. So if we wanted to, industrial types that produce a good. So if we wanted to, we can say we're going to exclude industrial that produce gunpowder from this tax, or change it, so instead of doing a 10% tax, we say we're going to do a 5% tax on that.
Or cap it at 100,000 or whatever.
We would do a percentage. It would change to be a percentage. We would say 1%, 2%, 5%, 8%, 9%.
Make sure
for the electric company.
The electric company wants a percent.
I make sure I'm not backpedaling here. I just want to re-verify the numbers, and if it is possible to not harm a largest employer in the county, I mean, they should pay.
They got to pay something.
I know they got to pay. I'm not just saying pay nothing. I'm saying
the issue becomes that we have in this debate is that $500,000 in today's current economy, with the way that businesses, where communities are bribing other companies to come to their business, to oftentimes a loss of money in their community. If you start charging a company $500,000, the conversation. You can't talk during discussion items. $500,000 a year extra, and they can go to another company and get, and Valdosta offers them $20 million to open a plant. There's very little to keep them in Wakulla County.
That's just what I'm saying I want to look at.
Even if it's a loss to Valdosta, they might do that just to get the jobs.
And while we're on the note, I want to explain to the public a little more about, because when the newspaper all come out, everybody's saying, well, you raised our taxes, or you this. Basically what we did is the equivalent of the federal government saying, We're no longer going to do any more deficit spending, and not only we're going to cut out deficit spending, we're going to start paying back the national debt. We have been deficit spending for the last 3-4 years. We're not doing that next year. We got to pay for that. And instead of raising people's property taxes, we implemented this new tax that everybody pays, not just property owners, everybody pays it. It's the most fair thing you can do. Now, we cut, what's our number?
Over $2 million.
$2 to $4 million. When you take out the deficit spending and transfers,
Yes, it's
about $4 million?
Non-recurring revenue, it's about $2 million, yes.
Okay, so we did cut. People say, well, why don't you just cut? And you didn't need this new tax, and you could have kept. Well, we did cut. Now, people are already calling about we lost a grader driver. That's less roads graded. People call about the rec park being in bad shape. We're talking about this bathroom earlier. Library. I mean, when I said tough political decision, that's it. I had to vote for a new tax. And it was either that or raise people's property taxes. And I'd always said I wasn't going to do that. So I want, a lot of people are mad about it. I would say you just got to trust us. I know nobody's going to believe that, but
and one of the things in this discussion, and I apologize for cutting in your conversation.
That's right, Al.
I anticipate. So one of the things, for instance, we don't know the 10% utility tax we're charging.
We'll just move over here. Go ahead.
The 10% tax we're charging. We don't know how much that's going to bring in right now. As I say, we don't know what the gas revenues are going to be on that. I fully anticipate that when we do our budget next year, you'll see a decrease in taxes. That this year will help us help build up some of our fund balance and cut off some of the funds that we're having shortfalls in. And next year you'll see a decrease. But until that happens, it's just what we're going to have to do.
And I agree with that.
And every Democrat I've ever heard has said that, and you say it well.
And I say, hey, amen. We got to do to run Wakulla, and all of us, and we had a Republican vote for it too. So a form of, yeah.
That's all I got.
Thank you. God help you. All right, we're done.
Move to adjourn.
To adjourn we have, and we're adjourned. Thank y'all.
Okay, where do you want flowers? Where?
See our discussion. See, we did our discussion. We had a discussion tonight.
319, where?
I didn't hear